Welcome, sleepy friend. Feel your soft bed around you. It holds you safe and sound, a familiar nest woven from woven threads in memory. The pillow cradles your head, yielding just enough, a gentle, silent promise of rest. The sheets, cool or warm to your touch, are a whisper against your skin, a comforting boundary between you and the waking world. Let your shoulders relax, sinking into the mattress, shedding the day's burdens like loose sand. Feel the slow, steady rhythm of your own breath, a gentle wave rising and falling within you. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do save for this quiet surrender. Your room is a sanctuary, cloaked in shadows that soften the edges of reality, inviting you inward. The air itself feels still, heavy with a peaceful expectation, carrying no echoes of the outside world, only the promise of deep, restorative quiet. Allow your muscles to release their grip, one by one, from the tension held in your jaw to the subtle clench in your toes. Imagine each breath expanding through your body, a warm, liquid release, dissolving any lingering discomfort, leaving behind only lightness and ease. This is your space, your moment, your anchor in the quietude. Far, far away, under the big ocean, there is a very different place. It is a long, deep scar on the earth, a wound that never heals, called the Kermadec Trench. Imagine the vast undulating expanse of the South Pacific, an endless blue canvas stretching to horizons unseen, where the sun's glare dances on a ceaseless, oily, rhythmic resistance. The ocean's surface here is a breathing entity, a colossal lung inhaling and exhaling. It swells not merely waves, but monumental exhalations of an ancient, indifferent force. Each rise and fall is a slow, deliberate heave, carrying with it the memory of storms that raged for weeks and the placid calm of millennia. The water itself feels impossibly dense, a liquid sapphire that absorbs light with a voracious hunger, reflecting only the most insistent rays. The air above it is thick with the scent of salt and distance, a clean, sharp tang that speaks of boundless space and untamed power. Beneath this shimmering, ceaselessly moving surface, where the light begins its long, slow retreat, lies the threshold of another realm. The Kermadec Trench is not merely a dip or a hollow. It is a monumental incision, a geological pronouncement etched into the planet's crust. It begins as an almost imperceptible leaning, a gradual subsidence of the seafloor, but rapidly descends into a stark, precipitous plunge. This is the boundary where the mighty Pacific Plate, burdened by its own immense mass and countless eons of history, performs a slow-motion planetary erasure, diving inexorably beneath the Australian plate. It is a tectonic ballet of colossal proportions, a ceaseless grinding collision that has been unfolding over geological eons, shaping the very architecture of our world. The process is not violent in human terms, but a relentless, inexorable subduction, a swallowing of one continental plate by another, creating this profound linear chasm. Think about how cozy your bed feels, how your duvet is a soft barrier against the night, how the walls of your room are a comfortingly finite embrace. Now, imagine a place that is 1,000 kilometers long, a huge, unwavering line drawn deep in the sea floor, extending from the northern tip of New Zealand northeastward toward Samoa. This place is not cozy. It is immense and unfathomable. Its scale defies human comprehension, dwarfing the grandest mountains, making even the deepest valleys seem like mere ripples. The pressure here is astronomical, unimaginable. It is a crushing weight, a force capable of collapsing even the strongest materials, transforming the familiar into the unrecognizable. The blue light, which penetrated so bravely at the surface, dies here with agonizing slowness. It first fades to a bruised purple, a melancholic stain on the retreating visibility, then deepens into an indigo so profound it feels like a physical presence, before finally succumbing to absolute, eternal blackness. In this lightless void, life, if it exists, must be a miracle of adaptation, a testament to resilience, thriving in conditions that would obliterate anything from our sunlit world. The water itself is a chilling, alien presence, barely above freezing, a vast, cold darkness that seems to absorb all warmth, all sound, all sensation. The sheer volume of this abyssal water is staggering, a liquid mountain range, inverted, stretching downwards into realms that have never known the sun's touch, nor felt the slightest tremor of a surface breeze. The silence here is absolute, an oppressive ancient stillness, broken only by the occasional unheard creak of shifting rock, or perhaps the faint primitive pulse of some deep-dwelling creature navigating its lightless domain. It is a silence so profound, it feels like a presence, a heavy cloak draped over everything, muffling all sound, all thought, all time. This is a world untamed, untouched, a primordial landscape sculpted by forces beyond human scale, a place where the very concept of up and down loses its meaning in the overwhelming verticality. It is a monument to the planet's raw, untamed power, a stark reminder of the vast, unexplored mysteries that lie hidden beneath the familiar veneer of our world. The trench is a realm of absolute pressure, where time seems to stretch and distort, and the very fabric of existence is rewritten by the unrelenting forces of the deep. It is a world of primitive beauty, a testament to the planet's enduring, unfathomable power. The oily dance of the swells. Listen to the quiet hum of your own breath, the soft brush of air against your skin. You are safe, enveloped in the soft embrace of your surroundings, a world away from the unfathomable depths. Close your eyes and allow the gentle rhythm of your heart to guide you, a steady drumbeat against the vast, silent expanse of the unknown. Imagine the sturdy walls around you, the familiar comfort of your bed, a sanctuary against the immense alien environment that exists beneath the churning surface of the South Pacific. Below, a geological scar, 1,000 kilometers long, carves its way across the ocean floor, a testament to forces beyond human comprehension. The ocean above the Kermadec Trench, however, is a different realm entirely. It is a canvas of perpetual motion, a vast living entity that never truly stills. Here, the immense swells roll and sway with a mesmerizing, almost sentient grace, an oily, rhythmic dance that speaks of ancient wisdom and untroubled indifference. These are not the frantic, wind-whipped waves of a stormy shore, but the deep, patient undulations of the open sea, born of distant gales and the slow, inexorable pull of lunar tides. The ancient swell, a colossal pulse of water born in the roaring 40s, carried within its immense bulk a primal awareness of geological time. It was not a thought process as humans understood it, but a deep, slow wisdom, an inherent understanding of continuous processes. Its mind did not dwell on the fleeting dramas of ships or the tiny lives that flitted across its surface. Instead, it was preoccupied with the vast, patient work of the planet, the grinding of tectonic plates, the slow migration of continents, the gradual shaping of the abyssal plains below. Its thoughts were less about individual events and more about the eternal, the cyclical, the grand ballet of planetary forces. The South Pacific swells move with a rhythmic resistance, a constant push and pull that feels like the very breath of the sea. It is a giant drawing in, then exhaling, a slow, deliberate expansion and contraction that reverberates through the water column. This movement goes on and on, a perpetual motion machine driven by forces far older than any living thing, never truly stopping, never truly resting. Each rise and fall is a testament to the ocean's immense power, a demonstration of its capacity to absorb and release energy on a scale that dwarfs human endeavors. The surface shimmers with an almost viscous quality, reflecting the sky in a constantly shifting mosaic of blues and grays. Sunlight, when it pierces the upper layers, transforms the water into a bruised purple before succumbing to the encroaching blackness below, a silent descent into the unfathomable. This oily, rhythmic resistance is more than just a physical phenomenon. It is a manifestation of the ocean's imperturbable nature. It is the sea's quiet refusal to be hurried, its patient assertion of its own immense timescale. The swells carry no judgment, no malice, only an unyielding adherence to the laws that govern their existence. They flow over the hidden chasm with the same effortless grace they exhibit over shallower waters, utterly indifferent to the geological drama unfolding beneath them. Their movement is a constant, a soothing counterpoint to the violent forces that shape the trench, a reminder of the ocean's enduring presence, its quiet strength. The immense pressure of the depths below, the near-freezing temperatures, the absolute silence. These harsh realities are entirely alien to the surface world. Here, the air carries the scent of salt and distance, the sounds are the gentle lapping of water against itself, the muted cries of seabirds circling high above. The swell itself creates a subtle, resonant hum, a low thrumming that vibrates through the water, a primordial song sung by the ocean itself. It is a world of light and shadow, of constant subtle change, a stark contrast to the eternal darkness that reigns just a few kilometers beneath its sunlit surface. The ancient swell continued its patient journey, its immense body a living testament to the vastness of the world. It had seen countless sunrises and sunsets, endured untold storms, and felt the whisper of winds from every corner of the globe. Its memory was not of individual events, but of the ceaseless flow, the continuous transformation. It was the enduring spirit of the ocean, a symbol of its deep, slow wisdom, its quiet power. The rhythmic resistance was not an obstacle, but a natural state, a dance performed since the dawn of time, a constant assertion of the ocean's majestic, indifferent will. It was a reminder that even in the face of immense, slow-motion planetary erasure, life and movement on the surface continued, oblivious, beautiful, and utterly compelling. Blankets of water, the ocean's surface, a canvas of shifting obsidian, seemed to breathe, not with the frantic gasps of a storm-tossed sea, but with the profound, unhurried rhythm of a leviathan in slumber. Here, over the vastness of the Kermadec Trench, the waves were not sharp-edged crests, but rather soft, dark blankets, eternally unfolding and refolding. They lay heavy and slick, a polished skin stretched taut over an unimaginable depth, each swell a quiet testament to the immense power that churned beneath. Imagine lying in the profound safety of your bed, the familiar scent of linen, the comforting weight of a quilt. Feel the steady thump of your own heart, a predictable rhythm in a world designed for human comfort. Now, let your mind drift, not upwards to starlit heavens, but downwards through the solid floor beneath you, through layers of soil and rock, deeper still, until you breach the colossal ancient pulse of water that defines the South Pacific. Below, 1,000 kilometers of straight-line scar cleaves the ocean floor, the Kermadec Trench, a wound of geological time, a testament to forces utterly indifferent to the fleeting concerns of humanity. Your bed, a haven, the trench, a void. The contrast is stark, yet in both lies a profound stillness, one born of security, the other of an unfathomable scale. The ancient swell, born in the roaring chaos of the 40s, had traveled far to reach this point, its journey a slow, deliberate march across the vast expanse. It carried no memory of individual squalls, no echo of passing ships. Its awareness was of basalt and granite, of the ponderous groan of the earth's crust. It moved with an oily, rhythmic resistance, each rise and fall a testament to its ancient lineage. The water here felt thick, almost viscous, like slow-moving oil, as it rose and fell in silent undulation. It was a constant, gentle push against the cool air, a monumental breath exhaled and inhaled by the planet itself. This was the boundary, the top of something truly immense, a fragile membrane separating the familiar world of light and air from the primitive, crushing dark below. The surface offered no hint of the drama unfolding beneath. The Pacific Plate, a colossal raft of ancient rock, was inexorably diving under the Australian Plate, a slow-motion planetary erasure occurring over geological eons. This wasn't a violent collision, but a stately, inexorable descent, a silent sacrifice of one world for another. The ancient swell knew this process not through sight or sound, but through the deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the water column, a tremor that spoke of unimaginable pressures and the relentless reshaping of continents. The sunlight, so vibrant and sapphire-bright at the surface, began its swift decline as one descended, losing its fervor with every meter. First, the brilliant blue softened, then deepened, becoming a bruised purple, a hue that spoke of fading warmth and encroaching mystery. This twilight zone was not a gradual transition, but a definitive boundary, a curtain drawn between realms. Beyond it lay total blackness, a realm where light had never touched, where the concept of day and night was an alien abstraction. Here, the pressure began its relentless embrace, squeezing every molecule, demanding submission. The ancient swell, in its vast, slow wisdom, felt the weight of this water, the incredible tonnage pressing down, a constant, unyielding presence. It was the primitive heartbeat of the deep, a throb that resonated through every particle of water, a profound awareness of the unfathomable. The surface blankets of water continued their eternal dance, oblivious to the immense forces shaping the abyssal plains below, a serene veil over a world in constant glacial flux. The plunge into darkness, below the rhythmic undulations of the surface, a vast unseen chasm yawned. The ocean floor, once a gently sloping expanse, began an abrupt precipitous drop. It plunged, a sheer, dizzying descent into an abyss where sunlight had never penetrated, a realm of perpetual twilight and ultimate darkness. The Kermadec Trench, a titanic scar etched into the planet's crust, lay waiting. Alara felt it before she saw it, a shift in the very fabric of the water around her. The familiar embrace of the sun-drenched surface, with its playful ripples and dancing reflections, began to recede. She imagined herself sinking, not falling, but a slow, deliberate immersion into the ocean's depths. The vibrant, almost aggressive azure of the overhead sky, which had painted the surface with a dazzling intensity, started its reluctant withdrawal. The sun's bright blue, so dominant and life-affirming at the surface, struggled against the increasing mass of water above. As Alara's mental descent continued, the brilliant hue softened, transforming into a gentler, more ethereal sapphire. It was a twilight, settling not over a landscape, but within the liquid embrace, a gradual dimming that felt less like an ending and more like a transition. The light, once a bold declaration, became a whispered secret. The softness deepened. The vibrant blues gave way to bruised indigos, then to a palette of muted purples, each shade bleeding into the next with an almost imperceptible grace. It was as if the ocean itself was holding its breath, absorbing the last vestiges of daylight, preparing for the inevitable. The warmth of the sun's touch, a memory now, faded into a cool, embracing chill. The vastness of the water above pressed down, a colossal, invisible weight, yet there was no sense of crushing immediate pressure, only a profound sense of immensity. Alara found herself in a liminal space, a boundary zone between the familiar world above and the unfathomable mysteries below. The light, now a struggling, diluted violet, stretched thinner and thinner, fighting a losing battle against the encroaching shadow. It was a primitive light, a mere suggestion, a ghost of what had been. She felt a subtle shift in the water's texture, an oily, rhythmic resistance that seemed to hum with a low, resonant frequency, a counterpoint to the distant, percussive roar of the surface swells. This wasn't the uniform current of open ocean, but something deeper, more ancient, a current shaped by the colossal forces at play beneath. The sense of geological time became palpable. Beneath the veiled surface, the Pacific Plate, a titanic slab of Earth's crust, was in the throes of a slow-motion planetary erasure, inexorably diving beneath the Australian Plate. This wasn't a sudden cataclysm, but a process unfolding over eons, a silent, relentless subduction. The very water around her seemed to vibrate with this immense, unhurried power. It was a stark contrast to the fleeting nature of her own existence, a humbling reminder of the scale of the world she inhabited. The last vestiges of the bruised purple light flickered, then surrendered. Total blackness descended, not an empty void, but a rich, velvety darkness that seemed to hold its own secrets, its own forms of life and energy. It was a darkness so profound, it felt like a presence, a living entity. The rhythmic thrumming intensified, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through her very bones, a primal echo of the Earth's ceaseless churning. The pressure mounted, a steady, increasing squeeze that was no longer an imagined sensation, but a stark physical reality. It was not painful, but insistent, a constant reminder of the incredible depth to which she was descending. The silence was absolute, broken only by the internal hum and the imagined echoes of the surface, now impossibly distant. In this profound darkness, senses beyond sight began to awaken. She felt the subtle currents, tasted the mineral richness of the deep, and heard the profound quiet that spoke of immense, unfathomable spaces. The world above, with its sun and sky, its wars and prophecies, seemed to shrink, becoming a distant memory, a faint echo against the overwhelming reality of the trench. Here, in the primitive depths, a different kind of truth awaited. Planetary erasure. Beneath Alara, the ocean floor undulated, a canvas of vast, shifting tectonics. She wasn't merely descending, she was witnessing a slow-motion erasure, an immense geological act unfolding in silence and shadow. Far below, where light yielded to an absolute crushing black, two colossal rafts of ancient rock converged. The Pacific Plate, a sprawling behemoth of Earth's crust, inexorably dove beneath the Australian Plate. This was planetary self-consumption, a primeval hunger gnawing at the world's very fabric, yet not a violent collision, but a ballet of unimaginable slowness, a geological waltz spanning eons. The Pacific Plate, a silent, unyielding leviathan, didn't recoil. It simply yielded, a continuous sacrifice, its ancient rock grinding against the overlying plate. Unfathomable pressure, a silent testament to the Earth's mantle generated from this titanic embrace. Alara, suspended in the abyssal void, felt these subterranean tremors not as jolts, but as a deep, resonant hum vibrating through the water, a constant low thrum against her sub's hull. It was the Earth breathing, groaning under the weight of its own creation and destruction. This primitive engine of planetary reshaping had persisted for an unimaginable span of time. Geological epochs ticked by, each marking another millimeter, another centimeter of the Pacific Plate's descent. It was a relentless, quiet push where the stakes were not victory or defeat, but the planet's very topography. Mountains rose from this inexorable collision, and trenches, like the one Alara plumbed, were carved into existence. A constant cycle of renewal and destruction, a testament to Earth's indifference to human timescales. As the Pacific Plate dove deeper, it carried ancient secrets, fossils of creatures from long-vanished seas, mineral veins formed under primordial conditions, faint magnetic signatures of an early Earth. All were drawn into the planet's fiery maw, a burial of immense scale, a primitive recycling process swallowing the past to forge the future. The sheer scope was humbling, a profound reminder of humanity's fleeting presence on a world shaped by forces so vast, so ancient, they bordered on the divine. Ilara's own descent mirrored, in miniature, the plate's journey. The sun's warmth vanished, replaced by a cold that seeped into her bones despite insulation. Vibrant surface blues faded to bruised purples, then an absolute velvety blackness that devoured every photon. Here, there was no up or down, no compass points, only omnipresent pressure and the deep guttural thrum of the Earth's engine. She was an intruder, a fleeting speck of light in a realm of immense, unfeeling power. The Pacific Plate, unburdened by consciousness or will, continued its slow, deliberate dive. A force of nature, a colossal raft of ancient rock, inexorably yielding, yet fundamentally indomitable. Its silent journey was a constant, a geological heartbeat pulsing longer than life existed on the surface. As Alara plunged into the trench, she felt an almost symbiotic connection to this grand, slow-motion planetary erasure, understanding it as a fundamental truth of Earth's existence, a process both destructive and utterly essential. The unfathomable pressure wasn't just physical. It was the weight of geological time, reshaping her perception, aligning her with the immense primitive rhythms of the planet. The bruised purple. The descent continued, the submersible's exterior lights painting a shrinking halo against the encroaching gloom. Alara watched, mesmerized, as the last vestiges of the familiar ocean blue began to mutate. It wasn't a gradual fade, but a profound, almost violent transformation. The vibrant sapphire that had clung to them for so long, a memory of the world above, now bled into something else entirely. First, a deepening indigo, rich and heavy, like ink diffusing into water. Then, with an almost imperceptible shift, this indigo bruised. It wasn't the purple of a twilight sky or a flourishing bloom. This was a deep, shadowy hue, a color born of immense pressure and unimaginable depth. It was the purple of a healing bruise, dark at its core, hinting at trauma and resilience, but also at the vast, unknowable emptiness stretching out below. Alara felt a strange ache in her chest, a primal recognition of something ancient and unyielding. The light was almost gone, a mere whisper now, outlining the submersible in a faint, ethereal glow that felt less like illumination and more like a boundary, a fragile demarcation between their technological bubble and the profound darkness eager to swallow it whole. Her eyes strained against the diminishing luminescence, trying to discern forms in the bruised purple, but there were none. Only the color itself, a pervasive shroud that made the already immense scale of the trench feel even more unfathomable. The hum of the subsystems, once a comforting drone, now seemed a fragile counterpoint to the absolute silence pressing in from all sides. It was the silence of geological time, of forces indifferent to human presence, of a world operating on a timescale incomprehensible to her own. Approaching the 4,000-meter mark, Jax's voice, calm and steady, cut through the reverie, though even his tone seemed to carry a new, subdued quality in this deepening gloom. Pressure reading stable. Life support nominal. Alara barely registered the technical updates. Her focus remained fixed on the dying light. The bruised purple deepened further, becoming a dense, velvety expanse that absorbed all other hues. It felt like a physical presence, a thick curtain drawing closed around them, pulling them deeper into its oppressive embrace. The sub's exterior cameras, usually a window to the outside, now transmitted only this singular, all-encompassing shade. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, a testament to the ocean's capacity for both vibrant life and absolute, lightless void. A shiver traced its way down her spine, not from cold, but from the sheer immensity of what this dying light represented. It was the boundary, the final frontier before true oblivion. Everything she knew, every visual reference point, every comforting shimmer of the surface world, was now being meticulously erased. She felt a strange sense of liberation mixed with a profound sense of diminishment. Here, she was nothing more than a speck, a transient visitor in a realm that had existed in this profound darkness for eons, oblivious to the sun, the moon, or the passage of time as humanity understood it. The bruised purple, already so deep, now began its final agonizing fade. It thinned, like a dye dissipating into an infinite volume of water. The edges of the submersible's light halo softened, blurring into the surrounding blackness. It was no longer a color, but a memory of a color, an echo. Alara held her breath, watching, waiting for the inevitable. The last sliver of the bruised purple clung stubbornly, a tenacious ghost, before finally, utterly giving way. All light was swallowed. The immense depth consumed every photon, every hint of color. There was only total blackness now, absolute and profound. A deep, silent void. It pressed in, not just visually, but almost physically, a heavy blanket of non-existence. The sub's internal lights, which had seemed so muted against the earlier blues and purples, now flared with a startling intensity, creating an artificial island of brightness in the overwhelming dark. Alara blinked, her eyes struggling to adjust to the sudden lack of external visual input. The familiar contours of the cockpit, the glint of the controls, the focused expressions of Jax and Lena, suddenly became her entire world. The vastness outside was no longer hinted at. It was a palpable presence, an endless, unyielding, primitive dark. She felt a strange sense of peace settle over her, a surrender to the absolute. In this profound blackness, the roar of the human world, the constant clamor for attention, the endless stream of data, all faded into insignificance. Only the deep remained. "Welcome to the abyss, Alara." Jax's voice, now a low murmur, seemed to resonate with the heavy silence around them. He didn't need to say anything more. She knew she was here, in the heart of the unfathomable. The grip of pressure. The absolute blackness that had swallowed them whole was not an empty void, but a presence, thick and palpable. In this profound darkness, the pressure began its relentless assertion. It wasn't a subtle shift, but a growing, all-encompassing squeeze, as if the very fabric of the ocean was contracting around the submersible. Alara felt it not just as a reading on the console, but as a dull ache in her bones, a phantom weight pressing against her chest, even within the protective shell of the Bathy's 5. It was a heavy, constant constriction, like a giant, indifferent hand slowly tightening its grip. This was the pressure of the unfathomable deep, a force so immense it felt less like a physical phenomenon and more like an ancient, primordial entity. "We're at 7,000 meters, Ben's voice was a low murmur, barely cutting through the hum of the life support systems. "Hull integrity holding, but listen to that." Alara strained her ears, discerning a faint, almost imperceptible groan from the submersible's titanium shell. It was a sound of immense strain, a material pushing against its absolute limits. The Bathy's 5 was a marvel of engineering, designed to withstand these impossible depths, yet the sound was unsettling, a stark reminder of their vulnerability. "It's like the ocean itself is trying to crush us," she whispered, her voice feeling thin and reedy in the claustrophobic confines. Ben nodded slowly, his face a pale oval in the faint glow of the instruments. "It is. This pressure is so great it's almost beyond human comprehension. Imagine the weight of the entire atmosphere, multiplied by 1,000 times, then compressed into a column of water above us. It's a primitive force, Alara, a visceral reminder of the raw, unyielding power of our planet." The submersible continued its methodical descent, each meter a testament to human ingenuity against the planet's brute force. The silent push against their vessel was relentless, a constant, unwavering assault. Alara pictured the individual water molecules, millions upon millions of them, stacking one upon the other, bearing down with an unimaginable collective might. It pushed against everything, against the bathysphere's advanced alloys, against the very notion of life surviving here, against the fragile boundaries of human exploration. Her mind conjured images of geological timescales, of the slow, inexorable grind of tectonic plates, the very process that had carved out this colossal trench. This pressure was the consequence of those monumental forces, a silent testament to Earth's indifferent power. It was the weight of eons condensed into a single, crushing moment. "The Kermadec Trench," Ben continued, his voice taking on a detached, almost reverent tone, "is a place defined by this pressure, a world apart. No light penetrates here, and the immense pressure creates an environment so extreme, it's effectively access denied to most forms of life. Anything not specifically adapted to these conditions would be instantly pulverized." Alara swallowed, a dry catch in her throat. She imagined a human body, unprotected, descending into this realm, bones crumbling, organs collapsing, every cell imploding under the unimaginable strain. It was a chilling thought, yet it imbued the experience with a profound sense of awe. They were trespassing in a domain never meant for them, a realm where life itself was an anomaly, a tenacious whisper against a deafening roar of force. The submersible shuddered again, a deeper, more resonant thrum that vibrated through the deck. Alara instinctively gripped the armrests. "Just a pressure wave," Ben reassured her, though his eyes darted to the diagnostic screens. "Nothing critical, but it gives you a sense of what's out there, doesn't it?" Out there. Beyond the thick viewport, beyond the gleaming titanium, was a world utterly alien, shaped by forces so profound they defied easy categorization. It was a world of pure physics, where gravity and pressure reigned supreme, and the very concept of up or down, light or shadow, ceased to hold meaning. The blackness now felt less like an absence and more like a dense, impenetrable medium, a dark, viscous fluid that held them in its unyielding embrace. Alara closed her eyes, letting the phantom pressure settle around her, a constant humbling reminder of their infinitesimal place in the grand geological scheme of things. She was no longer just an explorer. She was a speck, adrift in a sea of primordial force, privileged to witness the Earth's most guarded secret, life in the unfathomable. The bathysphere continued its descent, the faint hum of its life support systems a fragile counterpoint to the abyssal silence. Ben, ever the pragmatist, had been monitoring the stress fractures on the outer hull with a grim fascination. "We're reaching depths where the very concept of life bends to the will of physics," he'd murmured, his voice a low drone in the confined space. Alara, however, felt something else entirely. A strange sense of anticipation, a nascent awareness stirring within her. The pressure outside was a cosmic fist, relentless and absolute. It was the kind of force that could flatten mountains, yet here, in this crushing dark, life not only persisted, but thrived. Not life as they knew it, not the bustling, sun-kissed ecosystems of the surface, but something far older, far more elemental. Suddenly, a flicker on the external monitors, not the familiar bioluminescence of shallower abyssal zones, but a fleeting, barely discernible shadow. Then another, and another. "What was that?" Alara whispered, leaning closer to her viewport, pressing her forehead against the cool, thick acrylic. Ben, his brow furrowed in concentration, adjusted the gain on the cameras. "Thermal signatures, very faint, scattered." Then, a shape resolved itself into view, ephemeral and spectral against the blackness. It was a creature unlike anything Alara had ever imagined, not graceful, not beautiful in any conventional sense, but undeniably there. It moved with a slow, deliberate undulation, a testament to pure, unyielding survival. Its form was elongated, almost fluid, designed by eons of pressure to withstand the impossible. It seemed to absorb the blackness around it, a living shadow among shadows. This was the Deep Dweller. Its existence was a constant internal negotiation with the crushing weight of its world. It had no eyes, for light was an alien concept, a forgotten whisper from a realm it could never conceive. Its senses were tuned to the subtle vibrations of the water, the minute shifts in chemical gradients, the faint, almost imperceptible scent of chemosynthesis. It navigated by an innate understanding of its environment, a primal GPS etched into its very being. To the Deep Dweller, the world was a continuous, immersive pressure. It was the air it breathed, the ground it moved upon, the very fabric of its existence. It was home. Surface dwellers sought warmth and light. The Deep Dweller sought only the profound, constant embrace of the crushing dark. Its metabolism was slow, its movements economical. Every calorie was precious, every decision a matter of life or death in a world of scarce resources. It was solitary by nature, a testament to the vastness of its domain. Encounters were rare, often accidental, and almost always fleeting. Its form, sleek and unadorned, was a perfect expression of its environment. No extraneous features, no unnecessary frills. It was pure function, honed by the merciless hand of the trench. As the bathysphere continued its slow drift, the Deep Dweller, undisturbed by the silent colossal intrusion, continued its search for sustenance. It detected faint traces of hydrogen sulfide, a promise of a hydrothermal vent, a feast for the bacteria it grazed upon. Its world was a tapestry woven from chemical signals, a silent symphony of life and decay. Alara watched, mesmerized. The sheer resilience of it, the absolute unyielding will to exist against such overwhelming odds. It wasn't just a biological marvel, it was a philosophical statement, a living embodiment of tenacity. She felt a profound sense of awe, but also something else, a fleeting, almost imperceptible connection, a recognition of a shared struggle, a primal drive to simply be. The Deep Dweller was a testament to the Earth's boundless capacity for creation, a defiant spark in the face of absolute annihilation. It was primitive, yes, in the sense that its lineage stretched back to the very dawn of life, before the sun painted the surface with its brilliant hues. But it was also incredibly advanced, perfectly adapted, a living bridge to an ancient past and a silent witness to the planet's enduring power. Ben, still focused on the data, finally looked up. Remarkable, isn't it? Just thriving. Alara nodded slowly, her gaze still fixed on the disappearing shadow. It's more than thriving, Ben. It's being. The distinction was subtle, yet profound. Thriving implied success against adversity. Being, in this context, was simply an undeniable, unyielding state of existence woven into the very fabric of the abyss. It was an acceptance of the unfathomable, a quiet, powerful defiance that resonated deep within Alara. She felt a shift within herself, a subtle reordering of her own priorities, a growing understanding that survival, in its purest form, was its own profound victory. Return to safety. Imagine now, if you will, that you are no longer within the confines of the Bathys Five, nor are you adrift in the profound blackness of the Kermadec Trench. Instead, visualize yourself floating gently far, far above this immense dark place. You are suspended in a space of perfect safety and profound calm, detached from the crushing primitive pressures that dominate the abyss. You are protected, utterly removed from the unfathomable depths below. Feel the soft, familiar contours of your bed beneath you, the cool, smooth fabric against your skin, the comforting weight of your blanket, a subtle scent of home that whispers of security. Compare this tangible, immediate solace to the distant theoretical danger you've just explored. The Kermadec Trench, a 1,000-kilometer straight-line scar etched into the ocean floor, lies impossibly far beneath you now. It is a concept, a memory, not a present reality. You are here, safe, warm, and utterly unburdened by its existence. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and let the gentle sway of your breath guide you deeper into this feeling of sanctuary. With each inhale, draw in peace. With each exhale, release any lingering echoes of the deep. Feel the solid ground of your room, the foundations of your home, the very bedrock of the earth supporting you. This is your anchor, your unwavering point of stability, a stark contrast to the shifting, dynamic forces that sculpt the ocean floor. Picture now the surface of the South Pacific, thousands of meters above where we last left Alara and Ben. Witness the vast, unbroken expanse of water, a canvas of ever-changing blues and greens under the distant sun. Feel the rhythmic resistance of the swells, a slow, oily undulation that speaks of immense power, contained yet subtly expressed. This is the ocean's breath, an ancient, consistent exhalation and inhalation, utterly indifferent to the dramas playing out in its abyssal reaches. Envision the sun's brilliant descent, painting the sky with hues of tangerine and rose. Watch as the vibrant blue light, so familiar to our waking world, begins to fade, first softening into a muted lavender, then deepening to a bruised purple, before finally succumbing to the encroaching, total blackness of night. This transition, a daily surrender to shadow, mirrors the light's journey into the trench, a vibrant presence gradually diminished, then extinguished, by the overwhelming volume of water. Consider the very nature of this place, the Kermadec Trench, not as a static feature, but as a living, breathing geological theater. Below the undulating surface, beneath the dying light, lies the slow-motion planetary erasure that defines the region. The Pacific Plate, a colossal slab of Earth's crust, is relentlessly diving under the Australian Plate. This isn't a sudden cataclysm, but a ballet of unimaginable power unfolding over geological eons. It is a competitor DNA, a fundamental struggle for existence, where one titan of the Earth's mantle slowly, inexorably consumes another. Imagine the sheer, incomprehensible scale of this process. Over millions of years, mountains are born and swallowed, oceans open and close, all driven by this silent, relentless subduction. The trench itself is but a temporary scar, a testament to this ongoing, colossal act of planetary renewal and destruction. And you, in your warmth and safety, are an observer, privileged to witness from a distance the raw, untamed power of the earth. Let your mind drift back to the deep dweller, that creature of pure, unyielding existence. Its formless grace, its adaptation to the most extreme conditions, offers a profound lesson in survival, in being exactly what is required, Nothing more, nothing less. But even that incredible creature is part of this larger planetary dance, a fleeting expression of life within a cycle of immense forces. Feel your body relax further into the embrace of your bed. The journey into the trench, the encounter with the deep dweller, the understanding of Earth's deep rhythms. These are now distant echoes, profound memories that have altered your understanding, yet leave you untouched by their physical reality. You are here, now, in a state of profound peace, having traversed unimaginable depths and returned, safe and whole. The immense unfathomable trench, with its crushing pressure and primitive life, has receded to the furthest edges of your awareness. It is a story told, an experience absorbed, a lesson learned. You are protected. Peaceful sleep. The gentle hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, a familiar nighttime serenade, reached you, a testament to the mundane safety of your own dwelling. The faint rustle of leaves against the window pane, whispering secrets from the garden, reminded you of the world above, a world of air and light and breathable atmosphere. You were here, not there. The immense unfathomable pressure of the deep abyss, the crushing weight that could transform flesh into paste, was a memory, a vivid simulation that now receded like a distant echo. Your bed, a haven of soft sheets and yielding mattress, welcomed you back with open arms. The sensation was immediate, profound, the distinct difference between the theoretical comfort of a virtual escape pod and the tangible embrace of your own sanctuary. Your muscles, which had unknowingly tensed during the imagined descent, now uncoiled, releasing a day's worth of subtle anxieties and the lingering echoes of the trench's formidable power. The image of the Kermadec Trench, that 1,000-kilometer straight-line scar etched into the ocean floor, began to blur at its edges. The geological theater, where the Pacific Plate wrestled with the Australian Plate in a slow-motion planetary erasure, was no longer a present reality, but a fading narrative. The deep dweller, that resilient entity thriving in conditions that defied human comprehension, became less an urgent presence and more a fascinating anecdote. Its survival, a testament to life's tenacity, was a lesson learned, absorbed without the personal risk of its hostile environment. The blue light, which had faded into a bruised purple before succumbing to total blackness in your mind's eye, was replaced by the comforting darkness of your bedroom. A darkness that was not absolute, but permeated by the soft glow of a digital alarm clock, a faint sliver of moonlight through the curtains, or the subtle luminescence of a distant street lamp. This was a friendly darkness, a cloak for rest, not a shroud for the unknown. Ben's presence, though entirely within the confines of your own imagination, had been a steady anchor in the simulated journey. His calm explanations, his quiet confidence, had guided you through the most terrifying conceptualizations. Now, even his imagined voice began to soften, dissolving into the quiet hum of your own thoughts. You felt the warmth of your covers, a gentle weight that was reassuring, protective. The air around you, still and temperate, was a stark contrast to the icy, near-freezing currents of the deep or the sudden scalding bursts from hydrothermal vents. Your lungs expanded and contracted effortlessly, taking in oxygen-rich air, a luxury denied to the deep-sea explorer without complex life support systems. The oily, rhythmic resistance of the South Pacific swells, a phrase that had once evoked a visceral sense of motion and immense power, now felt distant, almost abstract. It was a beautiful description, a poetic framing of nature's relentless energy, but it no longer carried the weight of direct experience. It was a memory of a concept, not a feeling of being tossed by an indifferent ocean. The primitive raw power of the subduction zone, the grinding of colossal tectonic plates, the relentless march of geological eons, all these magnificent and terrifying forces now belonged to the realm of contemplation, not immersion. You had glimpsed the planet's immense indifferent power, its cycles of destruction and renewal playing out on a timescale incomprehensible to human life. And you had done so from the safety of your own bed. The acceptance of your own smallness within these vast cycles, the profound peace Alara had found in her diminishment against the unfathomable deep, was a lesson that resonated. But it resonated not with the sharp edge of fear, but with the gentle understanding that comes from a safe distance. You had touched upon the profound, contemplated the unfathomable, and returned, unscathed, to the familiar. Let the last tendrils of the trench's imagined reality unravel. Let the thoughts of immense pressure, of crushing darkness, of the unique adaptations of deep-sea life simply drift away like smoke. They have served their purpose, offered their wisdom. Now they may recede. Feel the comfort of your bed once more. Let the thought of the deep, dark trench fade. You are safe, warm, and ready for a peaceful sleep. Good night. The Challenger. Deep, a sleek obsidian spear, cut through the crushing blue, a low rhythmic thrum its only protest. Not the roar of engines, but a deep resonant vibration, a symphonic hum of steel yielding to the ocean's relentless embrace. With each meter of descent, the chorus deepened. A subtle shift in pitch Iris Thorne felt in her bones more than heard. Through the reinforced sapphire viewport, twilight surrendered to an impenetrable indigo. Eris stood at the main console, her fingers tracing the holographic display. The depth gauge, a glowing emerald needle, spun with hypnotic grace, each silent tick a testament to their plunge into the unknown. Numbers climbed, 1,000 meters, 1,500, 2,000. Sunlight, a forgotten myth, gave way to the submersible's internal amber, a warm counterpoint to the frigid, crushing darkness outside. Mid-descent, Dr. Thorne. Captain Eva Rostova's voice, a low rumble, pierced the quiet hum. Rostova, ramrod straight, stood by primary navigation, her gaze fixed on a technical display, an anchor of resolve in the ever-shifting deep. All systems nominal, pressure integrity at 99.87%. Iris tore her eyes from the mesmerizing gauge. Thank you, Captain. The silence is profound, isn't it? Rostova grunted, a sound that held a spectrum of meaning. A woman of action, not introspection, she nonetheless harbored a deep respect for the ocean's might. Iris returned to the viewport, where indigo had now bled into absolute void. The Kermadec corridor, 10,000 meters deep. A geological scar on the planet's face, a chasm vast enough to swallow mountains. She pictured Mount Everest, not as a peak, but as a jagged pebble lost in the shoal deep, its summit not even disturbing the abyssal plain. This was no mere trench. It was a labyrinth where water, under such immense weight, became liquid stone, pressing in from every angle. Initiating primary sonar ping, Rostova announced, her voice devoid of inflection. A soft, almost imperceptible thrum vibrated the hull, a sound designed to pierce the dense water, to map the unseen. Iris leaned closer, her breath misting the cool glass. She imagined the sonar's journey, a burst of energy launched into the black. It would stretch, thinning as it battled the unimaginable water weight, each sound wave elongated, distorted, almost crushed by the density. The initial sharp ping would become a drawn-out sigh, a whisper traveling through geological eons. It wouldn't echo, rather it would disperse, a ghost of its former self, its energy absorbed, diffused, and utterly consumed by the unfathomable, a ripple dissolving into an ocean of liquid stone. The return signal, if any, would be a faint tremor, a distant memory of the original pulse, attenuated beyond recognition. That the Challenger Deep could even register such a whisper was a marvel. "Any returns, Captain?" Iris asked, her voice barely a whisper, scientific curiosity momentarily eclipsing her awe. Rostova's gaze remained fixed. "Not yet, Dr. Thorne. The return signal is delayed." As expected. A fleeting, almost imperceptible smile touched Rostova's lips. "She's a big one, this corridor. Bigger than the Mariana in some respects." Iris nodded, understanding. The Kermadec was a different beast entirely, less explored, more volatile, a true frontier. The very lack of return underscored its vastness, not just depth, but volume, an unimaginable expanse of water and rock. The Challenger. Deep continued its rhythmic descent, a silent plummet. Inside, the air remained regulated, the temperature constant, a stark contrast to the crushing cold outside. Iris felt a strange duality. The vessel's comfort, a technological marvel against the raw, untamed power of the abyss. It was a feeling she cherished, this dance between human ingenuity and primeval force. She moved to another console, activating biochemical sensors designed to detect the faintest traces of organic matter. The deep ocean was not barren. It teemed with bizarre alien life, perfectly adapted to crushing pressures in perpetual darkness. This was their true mission: to find the unseen, to glimpse life thriving beyond known limits. "Captain, how long until we reach the projected floor?" Aris asked, her focus now on the flickering readings. Rostova glanced at a timer. "Approximately 2 hours to initial contact with the abyssal plane, Dr. Thorne. But we'll be slowing our descent considerably in the next 30 minutes. Structural integrity requires even more meticulous monitoring at these depths." Her voice was calm, but Aris detected a subtle tension in her jaw, a testament to her immense responsibility. Rostova would oversee the hull's integrity herself. Aris trusted her implicitly. The Challenger Deep continued its slow, deliberate fall, a silent sentinel exploring Earth's most formidable secret. The rhythmic hum was now a lullaby, a comforting promise of discoveries hidden in the perpetual night. Aris felt a thrill of anticipation, a tingling sensation from her fingertips to her core. They were truly into the deep blue, and the journey had just begun. The labyrinth's embrace. The light from the Challenger Deep became an increasingly futile struggle against the encroaching midnight. Outside the viewport, the water wasn't merely dark. It was a physical presence, a heavy, silent blanket that seemed to absorb all luminescence, all definition. It pressed in, not with the gentle fluidity of a surface current, but with the palpable density of something nearing a solid state. Aris felt it in her bones, an almost sympathetic ache that mirrored the immense stress on the hull. A soft, rhythmic creak echoed through the cabin, a sound that spoke of geological eons and forces beyond human comprehension. It was the submarine breathing, groaning under the weight of an ocean that had long ago forgotten the sun. Eva, her face illuminated by the subtle glow of the navigation panel, barely acknowledged the sound. Her gaze was fixed on a series of pressure gauges, her fingers dancing across the controls with an almost surgical precision. She made minute adjustments, nudging a ballast tank here, recalibrating a thruster there, ensuring the vessel's integrity against a relentless, unforgiving adversary. Each movement was deliberate, a quiet testament to her unwavering focus. "Pressure readings are holding, Captain." Jax's voice, usually laced with a playful lilt, was subdued, tinged with a respectful awe. He stared at his sonar display, a swirling tapestry of muted greens and blues that provided the only visual representation of their descent. Approaching 9,000 meters, the corridor walls are closing in, though. It's like sailing through a cracked obsidian bottle. Aris leaned closer to the main viewport, pressing her palm against the cool, thick glass. The outside world was a blur of featureless gloom, yet she felt a profound connection to it. "It's not just a bottle, Jax," she murmured, her voice a soft counterpoint to the sub's metallic sighs. "It's a labyrinth, a place where the very concept of emptiness is an illusion. Every cubic centimeter out there is teeming with the potential for discovery, a universe in miniature, waiting to be unveiled." Eva glanced over, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes before she returned to her console. She appreciated Aris's wonder, even if her own mind was currently occupied with the very practical physics of not being crushed. "Potential is one thing, Doctor," she stated, her tone even. "Surviving to explore it is another." Jax, however, found kinship in Aris's words. "Precisely. Imagine what must be down here. Creatures that see in frequencies we can't even dream of, forms of life that laugh at the notion of oxygen. Our sonar, Captain," he continued, gesturing to his screen. "It's a blunt instrument down here. It tries to paint a picture, but the canvas keeps shifting. Listen." He isolated a faint, almost imperceptible sound on his display, amplifying it slightly. It was a single elongated thwumph, barely audible above the hum of the subsystems. "That," Jax explained, "was one of our active pings. It left the transducer, a crisp, sharp burst of sound. But as it pushed through this liquid granite, it stretched. The sound waves, compressed by the sheer unfathomable water weight, began to thin, to flatten. They weren't just dampened, they were crushed. The leading edge, once so sharp, became smeared, elongated, almost like a sigh. The trailing edge, too, was drawn out, dissolving into the background noise, as if the water itself was trying to swallow the vibration, to digest it and render it inert. It's like shouting into a pillow made of lead. The energy disperses, attenuates, until it's barely a ghost of its former self. He pointed to a small, almost insignificant ripple on the edge of his display. That little echo, that faint return, is all that makes it back. It traveled tens of kilometers, battling pressures that could turn steel to foil, only to whisper its findings. It's a testament to the ocean's power, Captain. Even sound itself struggles to find its way through this labyrinth of pressure. Eris watched the ripple, a new thought forming in her mind. If sound is so distorted, so muted, she mused, what about the biological signals? What if life down here communicates in a way that bypasses conventional acoustic principles entirely? Ava finally spoke, her voice cutting through the scientific speculation with a touch of practical concern. We are now at 9,400 meters. Hull integrity is stable, but we're entering a known zone of increased geothermal activity. Expect thermal fluctuations. Jax nodded, adjusting a dial. Thermal imaging already picking up anomalous spikes. Nothing critical yet, but it's definitely getting warmer in places. We're passing an area that, if it were on the surface, would be a mountain range. Down here? He paused, searching for the right analogy. Mount Everest wouldn't be a peak. It would be a jagged pebble, a forgotten shard swallowed whole by the abyssal plain. This corridor is so vast, so deep, that a landmark of that scale would simply disappear, unnoticed in the dark. The sub gave another soft, drawn-out groan, a deeper, more resonant sound than before. It was a living thing, straining against the invisible weight. Aris felt a shiver, not of fear, but of profound anticipation. They were on the precipice of something truly alien, something that would redefine life itself. The pressure was a constant, rhythmic embrace, holding them captive in its silent, crushing grip, yet, paradoxically, it was also the key, the very medium through which the deep would reveal its secrets. The echo's journey. The challenger. Deep groaned, a low metallic lament that echoed the immense stress on its hull. Aris, her eyes still wide with the silent awe of the abyssal plains stretching beyond the viewport, felt a familiar scientific itch. Her fingers hovered over the console, a silent conversation passing between her and the dormant sonar. Just one, she murmured, more to herself than to Jax, a single exploratory whisper into the void. Jax, hunched over his own flickering screens, didn't look up, but a small smile played on his lips. Careful, Dr. Thorne. Too many whispers and the void might just whisper back. He tapped a series of keys. Environment's still a mess for acoustic, but a short burst might give us something. Just a flicker. Eris nodded, a spark of anticipation in her gaze. She knew the limitations, the bizarre physics of sound at these depths, but the human drive to know, to connect, was too strong to be silenced by mere physics. With a deliberate press of a button, she released it. Ping. Inside the submarine, the sound was a muted, almost polite thrum against the hull, quickly absorbed by the resilient insulation. But outside, in the crushing, lightless realm, it was born anew. For a fleeting instant, it existed as a perfect crystalline sphere of pure sound energy, radiating outwards from the Challenger's hull. Then, the world asserted itself. The water, an unfathomable weight, became less a liquid and more a living, breathing entity of immense rhythmic pressure. It seized the nascent sound wave, a brutal, unseen hand closing around it. The pristine sphere began to deform, not shattering, but elongating, pulled by an invisible, relentless force. It stretched, thinning like spun sugar, its vibrant energy drawn out, attenuated until its initial sharp burst became a long, drawn-out groan. The sound, once a compact entity, now became a spectral ribbon, unraveling into the darkness. Each meter it traveled, the weight of geological eons pressed upon it. It was no longer a wave in the conventional sense, but a continuous, almost tangible thread of vibration woven into the very fabric of the deep. Its frequency, once crisp and defined, smeared. The individual oscillations pulled apart, distended, like a rubber band stretched to its breaking point. The pressure didn't merely dampen it, it reshaped it, fundamentally altering its essence. It thinned further, its amplitude dwindling, its energy bleeding into the infinite silence. What began as a focused burst became an ethereal, almost theoretical presence, a ghost of its former self. The water, a labyrinth of pressure, acted like a colossal vice, compressing and elongating simultaneously, forcing the sound to conform to its unimaginable density. It was as if Mount Everest, that jagged pebble of the surface world, were being swallowed and forgotten, its very structure reduced to an insignificant ripple in the shoal deep. And this sound wave was even less. It was being squeezed into non-existence, its journey a slow, inexorable surrender to the deep's absolute dominion. The pressure wasn't just a force, it was an environment, a state of being that warped reality. The sound wave, once a proud declaration, became a whisper on the edge of dissolution, a forlorn sigh in the crushing darkness. It was a silent scream, drawn out over an eternity, its energy diffused across an ever-expanding, ever-thickening medium. The ping, that tiny spark of human curiosity, was being inexorably absorbed, becoming one with the immense heavy stillness. On Jax's screen, a faint elongated smudge of light flickered into existence, then slowly, agonizingly, faded. It was barely there, a ghost of a reading, stretched thin across the timeline. "Well," Jax said, his voice unusually subdued, "there it is, or what's left of it. She really puts the deep in deep listening, doesn't she?" He leaned back, rubbing his chin. "That was beautiful, in a terrifying way, like watching a star die in slow motion, but acoustically." Aris didn't answer immediately. Her gaze was fixed on the now empty space where the signal had been. She felt a pang, not of failure, but of profound understanding. The deep didn't just absorb sound, it transmuted it. It took the familiar and rendered it alien, demanding a new language, a different way of perceiving. "It went out there," she finally said, her voice soft, "and it tried to speak. And the ocean, it answered in its own way." A new resolve settled over her. "We need to learn its language, Jax. Not just listen to the echoes, but understand the silence they leave behind." Silence of eons. The sonar wave, once a robust declaration, began its transformation. What started as a precise sphere of energy, a confident pulse of human inquiry, now found itself in a realm utterly alien to its nature. The rhythmic ping that had echoed so vibrantly within the confines of the submersible's hull, a sound designed to pierce and reflect, was losing its very essence. It thinned, stretching like spun glass, its once sharp edges blurring into a fuzzy, elongated ribbon. The formidable pressure, an invisible, omnipresent fist, began to knead it, softening its intent. "It's changing," Jax murmured, his gaze fixed on the holographic projection that mapped the sound's descent. The spectral ribbon of energy, initially a vibrant indigo, was now a pale violet, almost translucent at its edges. "The amplitude is dropping exponentially. It's like watching a whisper being born, then dying." Aris leaned closer, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's not just attenuating, Jax. Look at the waveform. It's being sculpted, reshaped. The frequency is shifting too. It's almost as if the deep is bending the very laws of acoustics." The sound wave, or what remained of it, continued its arduous journey. The crisp ping faded into a softer hush, a sound less of an inquiry and more of a surrender. Then, even that gentle exhalation gave way to a sigh, a final, almost imperceptible release of energy into the vastness. The indigo ribbon on the display, now a mere wisp, fluttered for a moment, a phantom limb in a realm of crushing reality, before dissolving completely. "Gone," Jax breathed, a note of awe in his voice. "Swallowed whole." The silence that descended upon the submersible was not merely the absence of sound. It was something far more profound. It was a silence that felt ancient, weighty, a palpable presence that pressed in from all sides. The rhythmic hum of the life support systems, usually a comforting backdrop, now felt intrusive, a fragile human intrusion into an unbroken eternity. It was a silence that had endured for geological eons, a vast, unblemished canvas upon which the universe had painted its slow, deliberate masterpieces. It's like the deep itself absorbed it, Aris said, her voice hushed, almost reverent, not just dissipated but transmuted. The energy didn't just vanish, it became part of this place. This labyrinth of pressure, as you called it, Jax. It's truly a labyrinth where the very water feels like a solid wall, where familiar physics are warped beyond recognition. Jax nodded slowly, his eyes wide. Mount Everest, Eris. We talk about it as this colossal peak, but down here it would be a jagged pebble, swallowed and forgotten. The weight above us, it's unfathomable. It's not just pressure, it's a living, breathing entity that transforms everything it touches. He paused, then added, a hint of his usual dry humor returning. Though I suppose it's less breathing and more crushing. The display remained blank, a stark reminder of the sound wave's ultimate fate. The deep had offered no echo, no reflection, no hint of what lay beyond the immediate, impenetrable black. It had simply absorbed the human attempt at communication, digesting it with an indifferent, timeless patience. No data, Aris said, a flicker of disappointment crossing her features, quickly replaced by renewed determination. No clear reflection, no discernible return. It's as if we shouted into a void that simply ceased to exist for that brief moment, then reformed around our sound, leaving no trace. Or it spoke its own language back to us, Jax countered, tapping a finger thoughtfully against the console. A language of absolute absorption. A silence so profound, it's a message in itself. It's telling us that our tools, our methods, our very understanding of sound are inadequate down here. We're trying to read a scroll with a magnifying glass when we need an entirely new lens. Aris looked out into the inky blackness beyond the viewport, her reflection a faint ghost superimposed on the impenetrable void. The submersible, a tiny bubble of light and life, hung suspended in a realm that defied human comprehension. The silence was not menacing, not hostile, but rather profoundly indifferent. It was the silence of something utterly complete, something that had no need for external validation or interaction. You're right, Jax, Aris finally said, a spark of inspiration lighting her eyes. It's a language, and we need to learn to speak it, or at least understand its grammar. This isn't about overcoming the deep, it's about listening to it, about finding a way to perceive what it is rather than what we expect it to be. This silence, it's the oldest story ever told. The rhythmic hum of the submersible's systems felt more pronounced now, a counterpoint to the profound stillness that enveloped them. It was a reminder of their fragile humanity, their artificial environment, yet also a testament to their unwavering drive to explore, to understand, to pierce the veil of the unknown. The initial frustration of their failed sonar ping had given way to something deeper, something that resonated with the core of Aris's scientific spirit. A renewed sense of wonder, a humbling recognition of the immense mysteries that still lay hidden beneath the waves. The Challenger, deep they were learning, was not just a geographic location. It was a state of being, a philosophical frontier. A faint shimmer. The control room, usually a hum of low-frequency diagnostics and quiet murmurs, settled into a profound stillness. The main display, a vast canvas of shifting blues and blacks, had been a testament to the abyssal void, a digital mirror of the crushing silence outside. Aris, hunched over the console, felt the ship's subtle vibrations resonate through the deck, a rhythmic pulse against the immensity. Her gaze was fixed on the sonar screen, now a tableau of nothingness, the last faint echoes of their conventional pings having long since been absorbed by the unfathomable water weight. Mount Everest, she mused, would be a jagged pebble, swallowed and forgotten in these depths, its soaring peak utterly inconsequential. Suddenly, a flicker. Not a blip, not a solid return, but a subtle, almost imperceptible shimmer. It was less an object and more a disturbance in the fabric of the digital darkness, like heat rising from an unseen source, a faint, iridescent ripple against the absolute black. It appeared, held for a breath, and then dissipated, leaving a ghost image on her retinas. Aris straightened, a jolt of adrenaline sparking through her. Her heart, which had been beating to the Challenger Deep's slow, deliberate rhythm, now quickened its pace. This was not a geological anomaly, not a pressure distortion. It was different. She leaned closer, her breath catching in her throat. Their meticulously charted maps of the Kermadec corridor were etched into her memory, every known fault line, every hydrothermal vent, every recognized deep-sea creature. This shimmer was not on any of them. "Jax," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the silence like a sharp crack. Jack's sonar Kim, who had been meticulously calibrating a new set of experimental hydrophones, a desperate last-ditch effort to coax something from the deep, spun around, his usually playful eyes now narrowed with focus. He'd felt the shift in Aris's posture, the sudden rigidity that betrayed her scientific calm. He took in the screen, his gaze sweeping over the faint, lingering impression. "Whoa," he breathed, moving to his own console. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up diagnostics, adjusting filters, amplifying the minutiae. The shimmer reappeared, stronger this time, a delicate, almost ethereal luminescence against the dark. It wasn't static. It pulsed, a slow, organic beat, expanding and contracting with an uncanny regularity. "It's not noise, Dr. Thorne," Jack said, his voice laced with a raw excitement he rarely allowed himself. "Definitely not artifact. The pattern, it's too coherent, and the frequency signature is completely off the charts for anything we've ever logged." He pointed to a spectral analysis graph blooming beside the main display. A thin, almost invisible spike rose from the baseline, a testament to a signal so weak, so stretched by the labyrinth of pressure, that it was nearly indistinguishable from the background hum of the universe. Yet, it was there. Undeniable. Captain Eva Rostova, who had been observing from the raised command dais, her arms crossed over her chest, moved with an almost predatory grace towards Aris's station. Her expression, usually a mask of stoic resolve, now held a glint of surprise, a flicker of the intense curiosity that lay beneath her pragmatic exterior. She looked at the shimmering anomaly, then at Aris, her gaze piercing. "Explain," Eva commanded, her voice low, devoid of inflection, yet carrying the weight of unyielding authority. Aris tore her eyes from the screen, meeting Eva's gaze. "Captain, we've been searching for a language," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of wonder that vibrated through her. "A way to perceive beyond our tools. This might be it. It's not a reflection, not an echo. It's a presence, a living presence." Jax nodded vigorously, his fingers still flying across his console, trying to coax more data from the elusive signal. The linguistic dilation, it's incredible. The sound, if it is sound, is so stretched, so thinned, so utterly crushed by the water column that it's almost beyond our comprehension. Imagine a chord, played at the surface, and by the time it reaches us, it's been drawn out across geological eons. This shimmer, it's the ghost of that chord, but it's still there. The faint shimmer pulsed again, a silent, rhythmic beacon in the heart of the deepest ocean. It was an invitation, a whisper from a world utterly alien, yet undeniably alive. The Challenger Deep had been a tomb of silence, a vast, indifferent void. Now it had spoken, not with a roar, but with a delicate, almost shy luminescence. And in that moment, Aris felt a profound shift. Their journey had transformed from a scientific expedition into something far more ancient, far more primal. They were no longer merely observers, they were witnesses to the dawn of a new perception. The abyss, once a barrier, had become a window. The pulsing enigma. The faint shimmer on the display, a ghost of light against the oppressive black, intensified. It wasn't a sudden flare, but a slow, deliberate brightening, like an ember fanned by an unseen breath. Aris leaned closer, her breath held, a silent prayer forming on her lips. "Jax, can you isolate that frequency?" she murmured, her voice barely a whisper in the hushed control room. Jax, his face illuminated by the green glow emanating from the sonar screen, tapped a series of commands. The background noise, a constant symphony of creaks and groans from the Challenger Deep protesting its abyssal prison, receded. What remained was a singular undulating signal. It pulsed, not erratically like a glitch, but with a rhythmic, almost hypnotic regularity. The green deepened, becoming a vibrant, ethereal emerald. It's getting clearer, Dr. Thorne," Jack said, his usual sarcastic edge replaced by a quiet awe, like it's allowing us to see it. He adjusted a dial, and the green light on the main screen sharpened, resolving into a distinct bioluminescent presence. It was a soft, diffuse glow, roughly ovoid, but lacking any discernible features. No fins, no eyes, no mouth. It simply was. The enigma began to move, not with the darting urgency of a startled fish, nor the languid drift of a jellyfish. Its movement was a slow, majestic glide, an almost imperceptible shift that nonetheless conveyed immense purpose. It rotated gently, a slow pirouette in the crushing silence of the deep. It was unlike anything Aris had ever witnessed or even read about in the most speculative of scientific journals. "It's not swimming," Aris breathed, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's resonating, moving itself through vibrations perhaps, or interacting with the very fabric of the water itself." She pressed her palm against the cool glass of the viewport, as if to physically bridge the impossible distance. The green light pulsed, mirroring the beat of her own accelerated heart. "No thermal signature either," Jax added, his fingers dancing across the console, "or any conventional electromagnetic trace. It's cold, or completely inert to our sensors, beyond this light." He chuckled, a nervous, disbelieving sound. "Could it be a deep-sea rave, Doctor? Just a really, really slow one?" Eris, usually quick to appreciate Jax's attempts at humor, merely offered a distracted nod. Her mind was already racing, constructing and dismantling hypotheses with dizzying speed. "It's too deliberate, Jax, too controlled. A rave implies chaos. This is elegant, purposeful." She felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if this silent, glowing entity was communicating something profound without a single sound. "The consistency of the pulse," Aris mused aloud, her voice gaining momentum. "It's not random, it's too steady, too rhythmic, like a heartbeat or a signal. A language, perhaps, expressed through light and vibration." The idea, wild as it was, felt strangely right. What if it's not a creature in the way we understand creatures? What if it's a colony, a collective organism communicating internally or with us? Jax zoomed in further, pushing the limits of their optical sensors. The green light, even under such intense magnification, remained smooth, unbroken. There were no discernible cells, no internal structures, just the pure, unadulterated glow. "It's defying all known biology, Dr. Thorne," he stated, his voice tinged with a blend of disbelief and wonder. "It's like it's made of pure energy, contained within a field of light." The pulsing intensified slightly, the green growing richer, deeper, almost demanding attention. It seemed to acknowledge their scrutiny, not with fear, but with a silent, profound presence. It was observing them, Eris realized with a jolt, just as they were observing it. The roles had subtly shifted. They were no longer the sole explorers, they were now subjects of a silent, luminous gaze from the unknown. Aris felt a primal urge to reach out, to understand this silent, breathing enigma. Her scientific training warred with a deeper, more intuitive understanding. This wasn't just a discovery. It was an encounter. An undeniable encounter with something truly alien, something that transcended the familiar boundaries of life as they knew it. The abyss, once a barrier, had become a gateway, a gentle knock, the challenger. Deep hung suspended, a fragile speck of light in an ocean that had swallowed mountains. The abyss, once an opaque curtain, now revealed its true scale, an unending, silent void. The singular ovoid entity, a shimmering pulse of cool energy, remained a fixed point, its silent observation an almost palpable weight in the control room. Aris felt an irresistible pull, a scientist's instinct to bridge the unknown. "Bring us closer, Eva," she murmured, her voice a low hum against the distant thrum of the sub's dormant systems. "Just a little closer." Captain Rostova, her gaze unwavering from the main viewport, gave a curt nod. Her fingers, usually a blur across the console, moved with deliberate precision. The thrusters gave a barely perceptible sigh, a whisper in the overwhelming silence, nudging the Challenger deep forward. The sub drifted, a silver fish drawn by an invisible current, its powerful lights carving a shallow tunnel through the liquid darkness. The distance between them and the entity, once measured in the anxious beats of Eris's heart, began to shrink. As they approached, the entity didn't retreat. Instead, it seemed to expand subtly, its internal luminescence brightening, a silent invitation. Jax, typically a whirlwind of data and theories, was uncharacteristically still, his eyes wide, reflecting the eerie glow of the entity on the main screen. He leaned forward, his breath held. It's not avoiding us," he whispered, a tremor in his voice that spoke more of awe than fear. "It's waiting." The silence in the control room deepened, broken only by the rhythmic whisper of the life support systems. The sheer immensity of the water column above and below them pressed in, a physical presence. The Challenger Deep was now close enough that the entity, once a distant star, filled a significant portion of the view screen. Its surface, previously appearing smooth, now revealed a subtle, almost imperceptible texture, like a vast polished gemstone. Then, it happened. A sound, faint at first, then distinct, reverberated through the hull. Tap, 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 tap. It wasn't the metallic shriek of stressed material, nor the grinding groan of the deep-sea currents against the pressure hull. This was something altogether different. A deliberate, rhythmic cadence, like a gentle, curious knuckle rapping against a door. The sound echoed in the confined space, a stark contrast to the profound silence that had defined their journey thus far. Aris flinched, a jolt of primal alarm shooting through her, quickly overridden by a surge of pure intellectual fascination. Her gaze darted to Ava, whose stoic composure had finally fractured. The captain's eyes, usually pools of icy determination, held a glint of genuine astonishment. Her hand hovered over a console, but she didn't activate any alarms. This wasn't an attack. Jax let out a soft gasp. "Did you hear that?" His voice was barely a breath. It's like it's trying to communicate." He turned to Aris, his face a canvas of wonder and disbelief, illuminated by the shifting colors on his sonar screen. The rhythmic tapping continued, a steady, unhurried beat. Tap, 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 tap. Aris moved closer to the main viewport, pressing her palm against the cool, thick glass, as if trying to feel the vibrations directly. The entity, now just meters away, pulsed with an internal rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the external tapping. It wasn't a random impact, but an intentional, almost melodic sequence. "It's not aggressive," Aris murmured, more to herself than to the crew. Her mind raced, sifting through every known form of biological interaction, every theory of deep-sea communication. Nothing fit. This was entirely new. "It's inquiring." Ava slowly lowered her hand from the console. Her gaze, though still wary, now held a flicker of something akin to awe. She looked at Aris, a silent question passing between them, the rigid lines of command blurred, replaced by a shared moment of profound, unnerving discovery. The rhythmic tapping intensified slightly, not louder, but more insistent, as if the entity was waiting for a response. The entire sub seemed to hold its breath. The crew, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and profound wonder under the soft glow of the data screens, stared at the entity, then at each other. They were no longer merely observers. They were being observed, acknowledged, perhaps even addressed by something utterly beyond their comprehension. This was not a scientific discovery, it was an encounter, and the gentle knock against the hull was an invitation to a conversation they had no idea how to begin. Jax, ever the one to bridge the abstract with the tangible, suddenly reached for his microphone. "Aris," he began, his voice surprisingly steady, "do you think it understands sound? Or vibration?" Aris didn't answer immediately. Her eyes remained fixed on the entity, her mind grappling with the implications. The rhythmic tap, 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 tap continued, a silent question echoing in the vast, dark ocean. Life beyond. Imagining. The rhythmic percussion against the hull, which had captivated the entire crew, abruptly ceased. The unexpected silence that followed was not empty, but rather a vacuum pregnant with anticipation, amplifying the distant hum of the Challenger Deep's life support systems. Aris, who had been leaning forward, her face mere inches from the viewport, felt an almost physical jolt. Her gaze remained fixed on the luminous ovoid, which, in the wake of the cessation, began to pulse with a new, intensified green light. It wasn't a mere glow. It was an internal effervescence, as if the entity itself were undergoing a profound transformation. "It stopped," Jax murmured, his voice hushed, breaking the unspoken agreement to hold their breath. His fingers, which had been poised over his console, now hovered as if uncertain of their next move. Captain Rostova, ever vigilant, scanned the diagnostics. No hull breach, no external impact detected since the last tap. All systems nominal. Her words, usually clipped and precise, held a tremor of something akin to awe. Even her rigid posture seemed to soften slightly, her focus entirely consumed by the spectacle unfolding outside. The green light intensified, not blindingly so, but with a deep emerald brilliance that seemed to carve away the surrounding abyssal darkness. As the light grew, the amorphous ovoid began to stretch, to unfurl, revealing the true nature of its form. It was not a solid mass, but a living tapestry woven from pure light and profound shadow. Tendrils of luminescence snaked outwards, retracting and expanding with an organic fluidity that defied known physics. Within the emerald glow, deeper, almost obsidian shadows pulsed, defining contours that shifted with each subtle current in the crushing deep. Aris felt a gasp catch in her throat. This was not merely an organism, it was a phenomenon, a living sculpture crafted by the very forces of the abyss. Its form was intricate, impossibly delicate, yet imbued with an undeniable power. It was like observing a nebula brought to life, a celestial body reimagined for the depths. The edges of its form blurred and sharpened in a hypnotic dance, suggesting an existence not bound by the rigidities of matter. "My God," Eris breathed, her scientific objectivity momentarily forgotten, replaced by a pure, unadulterated wonder. It's made of light and shadow." Her mind raced, grappling with the implications. How could a creature exist in such a state? What was its biology, its purpose? Jax, ever the poet of data, leaned closer to his sonar screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. The acoustic signature is complex now. It's not just a single point of origin anymore. It's like a symphony of echoes within itself. He paused, then whispered, "It's like it's vibrating with silence." The creature continued its luminous reveal. Its central mass, once a simple ovoid, now elongated into a serpentine form, adorned with fin-like structures that rippled with internal light. These were not fins as they knew them, not for propulsion in a liquid medium, but rather graceful, undulating extensions that seemed to absorb and refract the green light, creating fleeting rainbows in the perpetual twilight. The light itself seemed to be its very skin, its lifeblood, its essence. It moved with a slow, deliberate grace, a creature perfectly adapted to the labyrinth of pressure where water itself became a tangible, almost solid entity. Aris felt a profound shift within her. They had come seeking life, perhaps microbial, perhaps something more complex, but still within the realm of scientific expectation. This was beyond imagination. This was life beyond seen. A being not merely surviving, but thriving in conditions that would crush any other known organism into oblivion. Its existence challenged every preconception, every biological axiom she held dear. "Look at the way it moves," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's not fighting the pressure, it's flowing with it, like the water itself is part of its being." Captain Rostova, her eyes wide, finally spoke, her voice laced with an uncharacteristic softness. "I've seen icebergs calve, storms that could swallow an aircraft carrier, but never anything like this." The pragmatic captain was, for the first time, truly speechless. The creature unfurled further, revealing a tapestry of spectral limbs, not distinct appendages, but flowing extensions of its luminous body, each tipped with a brighter point of green. It was as if it were reaching out, not aggressively, but with a curious, almost delicate exploration of its surroundings. The sheer scale of it became apparent. What had initially appeared as a manageable ovoid now stretched to an immense length, dwarfing the Challenger deep. Mount Everest, she mused, wasn't a peak here. It would be a jagged pebble swallowed and forgotten in the vast, crushing maw of the shoal deep. Aris felt a thrill, cold and exhilarating, course through her veins. This wasn't merely a discovery. It was a communion. The tapping, the light, the reveal. It was an invitation, a gesture. They were not merely observing a new species. They were witnessing a new paradigm of life, forged over geological eons in the immense, silent depths. This creature, a living embodiment of the abyss, was now engaging them directly, peeling back the veil of its existence. The mission had just begun. The ancient dialogue. The serpentine light pulsed, not with the rapid staccato that might have signified a warning or an attack, but with an undulating rhythm, slow and deliberate, like a breath held and released over geological eons. The bioluminescence shifted from an ethereal sapphire to a deep amethyst, then bled into a shimmering emerald before fading into the encompassing black. Each color change seemed to carry a weight of meaning, a silent language spoken not through vocal cords, but through the very fabric of light itself. Aris felt it first, a subtle resonance in her own being, as if her mind, a finely tuned instrument, was being played by an invisible bow. It wasn't a thought, not a picture, but an impression, a feeling of immense time and boundless space. Her fingers, unconsciously, pressed against the cold viewport. "It's communicating," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the sub, not with words, but with narrative. Jax, usually quick with a dry quip or a technical observation, was utterly silent, his face illuminated by the shifting hues. His eyes, usually scanning multiple readouts, were fixed on the creature, a mirror reflecting the wonder within. He saw not just light and shadow, but patterns, an unfolding tapestry of energy that transcended mere visual data. "It's like a story being told in pure energy," he murmured, his voice hushed with reverence. "Every pulse, a sentence, every shift, a chapter." Captain Rostova, ever the pragmatist, felt the tension coil within her. Her hand rested on a console, ready to initiate evasive maneuvers, yet she remained utterly still. The creature, for all its immense power, exuded no hostility, only an ancient, profound patience. She watched Aris, whose face was a canvas of rapt absorption, a testament to the unyielding human drive to understand. Rostova had witnessed countless bizarre phenomena in her years at sea, but this was an entirely different order of magnitude. This was an invitation. The light pulsed again, a slow, deliberate wave of amber that seemed to stretch and thin, like a single sonar ping launched into the unfathomable depths. It elongated, almost visually, as if illustrating the immense distances it had traversed, the crushing weight of the water around it. The light thinned, stretching further, becoming almost imperceptible at its edges, before finally being reabsorbed, swallowed by the solid-feeling water. It was a visual representation of how sound itself struggled in this labyrinth of pressure, how even light could be distorted, pulled, and crushed. Aris closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sensation wash over her. She imagined Mount Everest, not as a towering peak, but as a jagged pebble, swallowed whole and forgotten in the vast, indifferent maw of the shoal deep. The creature wasn't just showing them light, it was showing them physics, the very essence of its existence, in a realm where human understanding was a mere flicker. When her eyes opened, they held a profound understanding. "It's describing its home," she breathed, her voice filled with a quiet awe. "The immense pressure, the geological shifts, the silence that isn't empty but full of compressed time. It's showing us its world, from the inside out." Jack slowly reached out, as if to touch the light, his fingers hovering inches from the viewport. "It's not just showing, Aris," he corrected, his voice still hushed. "It's sharing. It's an ancient dialogue, and we're being invited to listen." He looked at Rostova, his gaze serious. "Captain, this isn't just a discovery. It's a connection." Rostova's jaw was set, her gaze moving from the creature to her crew, her eyes lingering on Aris. The wonder on Thorne's face was palpable, contagious. For the first time, Rostova felt a relaxation of the rigid control she usually maintained. The mission parameters, the protocols, the very rules of engagement all seemed flimsy, insignificant against the backdrop of this unfolding miracle. This wasn't merely observing, it was participating. The rhythmic tapping on the hull had been a greeting, the serpentine form a revelation, and now the light pulses were a story. A very old story, whispered across the chasm of existence. The creature's light shifted again, a cascade of iridescent greens and blues that flowed like liquid starlight, weaving intricate ephemeral patterns against the inky blackness. It was a dance, a celebration, a testament to a life that thrived in conditions humans had long deemed impossible. Iris felt an almost overwhelming urge to reciprocate, to communicate back, to somehow acknowledge the profound gift they were receiving. The crew, a silent tableau of awe, understood. This wasn't just about scientific data or charting new species. It was about expanding the very definition of life, of intelligence, of connection. They were witness to an ancient dialogue, a cosmic conversation playing out in the deepest, darkest corners of their own planet, a dialogue that had just, for the first time, included humanity. Rising to the surface. The hum of the thrusters, previously a low thrum against the immense quiet, subtly shifted. It wasn't a dramatic surge, but a gentle, almost imperceptible change in frequency that resonated through the Challenger Deep's hull. Iris felt it first, a vibration in her chest that was distinct from the rhythmic pulse of the ovoid entity. Her gaze, still fixed on the shimmering being outside the viewport, flickered to Rostova. "Captain?" Iris's voice was a soft inquiry, barely disturbing the sacred hush of the control room. Rostova's profile was unreadable, her eyes narrowed as they scanned the array of holographic displays that bloomed across the console. A single, deliberate nod was her only response. On the main screen, the depth indicator, a luminous green string of digits, began to tick upward. Slowly, agonizingly slowly. The abyssal plane, which had been a flat, boundless canvas of dark silt, now began its languid descent from their view, like a stage curtain being drawn. The ovoid creature, still emitting its complex, silent narrative, seemed to sense the shift. Its bioluminescence intensified for a moment, a final, brilliant flourish of light that painted the viewport in hues of emerald and sapphire. Iris instinctively reached out, her fingers pressing against the cold acrylic, as if to prolong the contact. There was no sadness in her gesture, only a profound respect and a deep, aching wonder. This being, this luminous heart of the deep, was not meant for their world above. Its home was here, in the crushing embrace of the abyssal plane, a realm of perpetual night and unimaginable pressures, where geological eons unfolded in the rhythmic silence. "It knows," Jax murmured, his voice a low, reverent whisper, his own hand resting lightly on the sonar console, as if to feel the creature's receding echoes. "It's sharing its farewell." Rostova, ever the pragmatist, cleared her throat. "Sonar, maintain a passive scan. Dr. Thorne, begin logging your observations of its final communication sequence. We will need every data point for the ascent protocols." Her words were clipped, professional, yet Iris detected a tremor, a subtle undercurrent of awe that even the stoic captain could not entirely suppress. The encounter had etched itself onto them all. As the Challenger Deep gained a few more meters, the creature began to recede, its light diminishing not in intensity, but in relative size, shrinking into a distant, pulsating star. The tapestry of the abyss, once vibrant with its presence, began to reassert its primeval darkness. The labyrinth of pressure, where the water itself felt like a physical solid, still surrounded them, but now the vessel was moving against its oppressive embrace. Iris watched until the last vestige of the ovoid faded into the impenetrable black. Her mind replayed the silent symphony of light, the ancient sharing that had transcended spoken language. It wasn't just a discovery, it was a communion. They had witnessed a narrative of immense time, a being whose very existence challenged humanity's understanding of life itself. The scientific framework she had built her career upon felt suddenly vast and incomplete, stretched thin by the sheer beautiful mystery they had encountered. The ascent was a slow, deliberate crawl through the unfathomable water weight. Each meter gained felt like a triumph, a gentle release from the crushing embrace of the deep. Jax, usually prone to humming abstract tunes or tapping out complex rhythms on his console, was uncharacteristically quiet. He occasionally glanced at Eris, a shared understanding passing between them in the silence. He had seen the beauty in the creature's patterns, the artistry in its silent language, and it had resonated with the deeper, more intuitive part of him. "The data streams are stable, Captain," Jax reported, his voice a little softer than usual. "No anomalies, just the deep." Rostova nodded, her gaze fixed on the upward trajectory projected onto the main screen. The stress lines around her eyes were a little deeper, but there was also a newfound thoughtfulness in her expression. The protocols, the rigid adherence to procedure that defined her, had been tested, bent, and ultimately transcended. She had seen, felt, and allowed an unprecedented dialogue to unfold. The sea, which she had always respected as a powerful force, now held a new dimension of profound living mystery. Mount Everest, that titanic peak, felt like a jagged pebble that would be swallowed and forgotten in the vast, silent depths they were now leaving. The crew, scattered throughout the Challenger Deep, also felt the profound impact. Even those who hadn't witnessed the direct communication were touched by the palpable shift in the atmosphere. The whispered conversations, the hushed awe that had permeated the vessel, spoke volumes. This wasn't just another data collection mission. It was an encounter that would forever redefine their understanding of life, of communication, of what it meant to be present in a universe far stranger and more beautiful than they had ever imagined. As the first faint glimmers of the sun's distant touch began to diffuse through the upper layers of water, a pale, ethereal blue replacing the eternal night, Aris closed her eyes. The image of the luminous ovoid was seared into her mind. They were leaving it behind, a sentinel in the rhythmic silence of its geological eons, but its essence, its profound message, was rising with them. It was a silent promise, an invitation to a deeper understanding, carried not just in the data they were collecting, but in the very fabric of their changed perspectives. The journey to the surface was not just a physical ascent, it was a philosophical one, a return to a world that would never quite look the same again. Close your eyes, picture, truly inhabit the sensation of ascending beyond all you know. Not skyward, that's too mundane, too easily charted. Instead, envision the ocean, a boundless tapestry of liquid sapphire and deep jade. Now, imagine yourself suspended, not by vessel or wing, but as pure consciousness hovering just above its glinting surface. A cool breeze whispers past, laden with the sharp tang of salt and the phantom cry of gulls. Beneath you, waves unfurl in rhythmic exhalations, the ocean a vast breathing canvas. Here, our journey begins. This is the Pacific, an arena of staggering proportion, and beneath that fathomless expanse, hidden from the sun's reach, lies a secret. Not one of forgotten gold or vanished cities, but something far more profound. It is the Kermadec Trench, a chasm so profound, so distant, it eludes facile comprehension. We often label trenches as gashes, scars, empty wounds in the planet's skin, but such terms are reductive, anthropocentric. The Kermadec isn't merely a void, a depression. It is a vibrant system of planetary consumption, a silent, voracious gullet where ancient forces engage in a slow, relentless ballet of creation and dissolution. Alara's voice, a soft current, was an irresistible summons to a realm few dared to ponder. Her words wove an enchantment, painting vivid, palpable scenes on the listener's inner canvas. "Feel it now," she murmured, her tone a near whisper, yet imbued with a steel thread. "Feel the absolute silence that descends as you sink lower, past the sun-drenched layers, through the twilight, into the absolute crushing dark. Light doesn't merely fade, it retreats in stages, each deepening blue yielding to an indigo so potent it feels like a physical presence. Then, the black, an absolute velvety void, so complete it swallows thought, drowns out sound, obliterates every familiar point of reference." She paused, allowing the image to coalesce, letting the weight of that imagined blackness press in. And yet, it is not truly silent down here. No. There is a thrum. A deep, resonant thrum that vibrates through the very water, through the imagined bedrock beneath you. It's not the thrum of human engines, nor the murmur of marine life. This is the earth breathing. A slow rhythmic exhalation and inhalation, born from the colossal forces grinding beneath the seabed. It's the sound of the Pacific Plate, relentless and unyielding, diving beneath the Australian Plate, a titanic geological embrace, happening at a pace so imperceptibly slow, yet with such immense power that it sculpts continents, rears mountains, and carves these abyssal plains. The thrum, she elaborated, was a symphony of friction, scaled down to an almost spiritual resonance. It represented the microscopic friction between two monumental plates of rock, vast continental rafts scraping against each other in an eternal, agonizing crawl. Imagine, she implored, the granite and basalt not as inert solid objects, but as living, breathing entities, each molecule straining against its neighbor. The pressure here is unfathomable, 100 million atmospheres, more than 1,000 times what we experience at the surface. Under such duress, even rock yields, deforms, flows like a viscous fluid over geological timescales. This inexorable movement, this grinding, this relentless sliding, produces a sound, a rhythmic, low-frequency thrum. It's a sound too profound for human ears to register in its pure form, yet Alara somehow conveyed its essence. It was a vibration that resonated in the bones, a frequency that spoke directly to the primal core of existence. It pulsed, a slow, deliberate heartbeat of the planet itself. Each protracted thrum signified an infinitesimal shift, a millimeter of plate subduction, a fraction of a degree of strain released, then immediately re-established. It was the sound of creation and destruction inextricably entwined. It spoke of unimaginable energy, of heat generated by colossal pressures, of rock under such duress that its internal structure was constantly, infinitesimally rearranging itself. It was the whisper of the deep, a testament to the planet's relentless internal churn. This thrum, Alara continued, her voice now barely above a murmur, is also the voice of tectonic instability. Every shift, every infinitesimal lurch of these titanic plates is a tremor in the fabric of the earth. Down here, in the cold, crushing embrace of the Hadal zone, the very ground is alive, constantly reshaping itself. The primitive heat rising from nearby subglacial volcanoes, ancient fiery hearts buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice, clashes violently with this Hadal cold. Think of the extremes, the frigid, near-freezing waters of the trench and the molten rock, superheated magma pushing upwards, yearning to break free. It's a battle of elemental forces playing out in slow motion beneath miles of ocean and rock. The contrast was stark, almost unbearable. The icy grip of the abyss, the absolute silence that punctuated the deep thrum, and the searing, destructive power of the planet's molten core. These forces weren't just shaping the landscape, they were shaping the very chemistry of the water, spawning life forms utterly alien to our surface world, creatures adapted to impossible pressures and eternal darkness. The Earth does not just resist our presence here, Alara concluded, her voice now a ghost of its former strength, imbued with a profound reverence. It erases the very memory of us. Any vessel, any probe, any human endeavor that dares to venture too far into this abyssal realm is not merely destroyed. It is absorbed, crushed, its components scattered, its very molecular structure reintegrated into the planet's ceaseless cycle. Down here, beneath the whisper of the deep, we are less than dust. We are nothing. And in that nothingness, there is a strange, terrifying beauty. A reminder of our place, of the true scale of the forces that govern this world. The hum, deep and primal, seemed to swell for a moment, a silent roar in the imagined darkness, before slowly receding, leaving only the lingering echo of Alara's words. The Earth's slow grind. That hum, Alara's voice, a low current in the dark, flowed into the space, the one that vibrates through bone and sinew and whispers of the world's true pulse. It is the sound of giants grinding. She paused, letting the implication settle, a weight heavier than any ocean. It is the Pacific Plate, a colossal raft of crust, slowly, inexorably diving beneath the Australian plate. An embrace so slow it feels like stillness, yet so powerful it sculpts continents. Imagine, if you can, two worlds, each weighing more than every mountain combined, rubbing against each other, centimeter by agonizing centimeter. The unfathomable pressure building within that deep embrace was not a sudden cataclysm, but a ceaseless, patient accumulation. It wasn't a single catastrophic squeeze, but a gradual tightening, a geological vice applying its force over millennia. She spoke of the rock itself, the very bedrock of the planet, groaning under a burden that defied human comprehension. It was a pressure so immense it could crush diamonds into dust, could fuse disparate elements into new forms. Each microscopic movement, each tremor imperceptible to our fleeting existence, added to an internal strain that sought release, not in explosion, but in a deeper, more profound exhalation. And within that titanic friction, Alara continued, her voice now a hushed reverence, lies the true secret of the hum. We're not talking about smooth surfaces here. We're talking about rock on rock, a landscape of jagged edges and crystalline peaks, of atomic bonds straining and snapping. She painted a picture, not with words, but with the very tremor of her tone, of infinitesimal asperities, minuscule protuberances on the surface of the descending Pacific Plate, scraping against the equally rough underside of the Australian plate. Imagine, if you will, not a uniform slide, but an intricate dance of microscopic destruction. Each tiny peak, a millimeter-high mountain range in its own right, snagging, catching, and then, with an almost imperceptible shiver, fracturing. Consider the individual grains of quartz, feldspar, and mica, each a miniature world of crystalline perfection, suddenly subjected to forces that distort their lattice, splinter their structure. The sound, then, is not one singular event, but the symphony of billions upon billions of these tiny fractures. It begins as an atomic shudder, a whisper of displacement at the molecular level. A single mineral grain, perhaps a speck of olivine, catches on a ripple in the opposing plate. For a fraction of a second, resistance. Then, with an almost imperceptible shh, it gives way. 1,000 such shks, 10,000, a million, all happening simultaneously across miles of interface. Each microscopic splintering releases a burst of energy, a miniature seismic event. These individual releases, each too faint to register alone, combine and coalesce. The resulting sound is not a screech, not a roar, but a deep resonant thrum. It's a rhythmic, low-frequency hum, a vibrational pulse that resonates not through the air, but through the very fabric of the planet. It's the sound of solid rock under unimaginable duress, slowly, methodically being ground to finer and finer particles. It is the steady, relentless abrasion of one world against another, a geological sandpaper working on a planetary scale. The sound waves, generated by these myriad microfractures, propagate through the dense rock, through the frigid Hadal waters, ultimately reaching us as that profound, all-encompassing vibration. It's a sound that speaks of creation and destruction intertwined. The slow grind creates new surfaces, exposes new minerals, and generates the heat that fuels the primitive volcanic vents nearby. This heat, rising from subglacial volcanoes, a primordial breath from the Earth's core, clashes violently with the Hadal cold of the trench. It's an elemental struggle, a constant battle between fire and ice, heat and absolute zero. The trench itself is not merely a void, but a living system of planetary consumption. It swallows crust whole, digests it in the mantle, and exhales the profound hum that is its metabolic song. The Earth does not just resist our presence here, Alara concluded, her voice now barely a whisper, yet resonating with an almost terrifying clarity. It erases the very memory of us. Our cities, our triumphs, our brief, noisy lives, they are less than dust motes in the face of this slow, grinding embrace. The hum intensified, Or perhaps it was just the profound silence that followed her words, making the deep rhythmic thrum even more insistent, a lullaby of ultimate power. The silent power. The realization of the Pacific Plate's slow, inexorable consumption beneath its Australian counterpart settled over them like the crushing weight of the abyssal water itself. Alara's voice, though calm, resonated with a terrifying scale, painting a picture of forces so immense they dwarfed human comprehension. "It's the very sound of the earth digesting itself," she murmured, her gaze fixed on something unseen beyond the viewport. "A planetary metabolism, ceaseless and unfathomable." She gestured towards the dark, unseen depths. "Imagine, if you can, two colossal jagged surfaces, each continent-sized, grinding against one another with an unimaginable slowness. It's not a violent crash, not in the way we understand it. It's a vast, quiet power. Down there, where no light has ever penetrated, where the pressure is so absolute it could flatten steel into foil, that's where the sound originates. Billions upon billions of microscopic rock fractures, occurring in perfect, terrifying synchronicity." The hum she spoke of wasn't just a sound. It was a physical presence, a vibration that seemed to seep into their very bones, an omnipresent tremor that spoke of geological agony and rebirth. It was a rhythmic, low-frequency hum, a resonant thrum that seemed to fill the entire cavity of the trench, a bass note played on the greatest instrument imaginable. Each microscopic shard, each grain of rock caught between these titanic plates, contributed its infinitesimally small friction to the grand symphony. It was the sound of silicate molecules tearing themselves apart, of crystalline structures deforming under stress beyond anything conceived on the surface. Imagine 1 billion grains of sand, each caught in the maw of an impossibly slow, impossibly strong grinder. The screech of one grain, almost imperceptible, multiplied by 1 billion, then 1 trillion, then 1 quadrillion, becomes this profound, all-encompassing thrum. It wasn't a sudden, sharp sound, but a continuous, unyielding groan, the sonic manifestation of internal stress. It was the whisper of ancient basalt against primordial granite, the slow, agonizing give of the Earth's very skeleton. This wasn't the sound of an earthquake, which was a sudden, violent release. This was the sound of the tension building before the release, an eternal, drawn-out crescendo. It was the sound of rock shedding itself, fragment by fragment, molecule by molecule, a constant, imperceptible erosion happening on a scale that defied human intuition. It was the sound of the deep earth breathing, exhaling the pressure of its own unimaginable weight. The friction generated by these myriad tiny fractures, each adding its infinitesimal contribution to the whole, accumulated into a sound so vast it ceased to be merely auditory and became an environmental force, a low-frequency wave that permeated matter. It was the song of creation and destruction, sung in the deepest, most silent parts of the world. "And all of this," Alara continued, her voice now a hushed reverence, "happens beneath the crushing burden of the ocean itself, the immense weight of those miles of water, pressing down, creating a stillness so profound it beggars belief. It's not just a hole in the ground. This trench is a living system of planetary consumption. The Pacific Plate, slowly, methodically, being drawn into the Earth's mantle, recycled, remade. The silence of the abyss isn't empty. It's pregnant with this colossal, slow movement. The water above acts as an insulator, a vast sound-dampening blanket that allows this rhythmic, low-frequency hum to propagate through the rock with an almost spiritual quality, unheard by surface ears, yet felt by the very foundations of the world." She paused, allowing the implications to settle. Deep below, the friction isn't just sound, it's heat. Primitive heat rising from nearby subglacial volcanoes, clashing with the huddle cold of the trench floor. It's a constant battle, a silent war of temperatures in a realm where time itself seems to stretch and warp. The Earth does not just resist our presence here, it erases the very memory of us. Any evidence, any trace of human endeavor would be swallowed, crushed, assimilated, utterly forgotten within the eons of this geological ballet. The notion of such constant slow movement happening unseen, unheard by the surface world, yet generating such profound power, was both terrifying and mesmerizing. It was a reminder of the Earth's self-contained processes, its indifferent grandeur. They were merely fleeting visitors to a realm governed by forces that preceded and would outlast all human endeavor. The pressure felt not just on the submarine, but on their very minds, a silent psychological weight that dwarfed their individual anxieties. This was the true nature of power, not loud or violent, but patient, inexorable, and utterly absolute. Primitive heat, Hadal cold. The Kermadec Trench, Alara's voice, though hushed, resonated with the profound weight of her words, is not merely a geological feature, it is the maw of a living system of planetary consumption. Her gaze drifted, not to the distant horizon, but inward, as if peering into the very strata of the Earth. Beneath the seemingly placid surface, where the Pacific Plate dives headlong beneath the Australian, an unfathomable process unfolds. It's a slow-motion geological digestion, a ceaseless grinding friction that generates both immense heat and a resonant hum. She paused, allowing the silence to settle, making her next words all the more impactful. Imagine, if you can, billions upon billions of microscopic points of contact, each a fraction of a human hair, yet under pressure so immense it beggars the imagination. This isn't a smooth slide. It's a constant, infinitesimal tearing, a vast subterranean rasping. Every single atom on the Pacific Plate, as it's dragged downward, resists its fate with a tenacity beyond our comprehension. This resistance manifests as an almost imperceptible vibratory hum, a rhythmic, low-frequency thrum that permeates the entire crust. It's the sound of solid rock surrendering, atom by atom, to an inexorable force. This hum is not a sudden violent crack, but a sustained deep thrum, a planetary heartbeat thrumming with the slow pulse of consumption. It's the Earth exhaling and inhaling through rock, each microscopic fracture adding its infinitesimal contribution to a symphony of geological power. The sound is too vast to be heard with human ears, too pervasive to be localized, yet it is there, an omnipresent murmur in the deepest abysses of the lithosphere. It's the whisper of ancient mountains being remade, of continents being reshaped, of the very fabric of our world being stretched and compressed. This isn't the chaotic roar of a volcanic eruption, nor the abrupt shock of an earthquake. It is the fundamental underlying acoustic signature of planetary metabolism, a deep and resonant frequency that speaks of timescales so immense they dwarf human history into an insignificant flicker. It is the sound of deep time in motion, a constant, low-frequency pulse that reverberates through the very mantle, a sound that has played out for eons, long before life emerged, and will continue long after it has faded. Within this colossal consumption, even more profound forces are at play. Deep beneath the glacial ice sheets that cap the most abyssal trenches, where sunlight has never touched, there are hidden volcanoes. These are not the fiery, explosive mountains of the surface world. These are slow, brooding giants, their magma chambers fueled by the very friction of subduction, a primitive heat rising from the Earth's molten heart. This heat, raw and untamed, seeps into the abyssal waters, a primordial warmth pushing against the crushing cold of the Hadal zone. Here, at depths where the pressure could flatten a tank, this primitive heat meets the Hadal cold. The water here is supercooled, denser than anything we experience on the surface, a liquid darkness held in an icy grip by the sheer weight of the ocean above. The clash is profound, a strange swirling dance of opposing forces. Plumes of superheated water, rich with dissolved minerals from the Earth's interior, erupt upwards, creating ephemeral currents that twist and writhe. These thermal plumes, carrying the very essence of the Earth's interior, meet the frigid, oxygen-deprived currents of the Hadal depths, creating transient zones of paradoxical warmth and unimaginable cold. It's a ballet of extremes, the incandescent breath of the planet exhaling into the absolute zero of the abyss. This interaction, isn't violent in the way a surface storm is. It's a slow, deliberate intermingling, a vast, silent struggle where the very laws of thermodynamics play out on a scale that defies human comprehension. The water shimmers, not with light, but with the subtle distortions of thermal gradients, creating fleeting phantom currents in the perpetual night. Here, life forms, adapted to these impossible conditions, thrive in communities utterly alien to our understanding, sustained by chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis, feeding directly on the Earth's internal energy. The Earth does not just resist our presence here, Alara concluded, her voice barely a whisper, imbued with a terrible reverence. It erases the very memory of us. This is a place of profound geological indifference, a monument to the planet's ceaseless self-renewing power. The weight of her words hung in the air, the terrifying vastness of the trench, not as a void, but as an active, consuming entity, stretching out before them, a testament to forces utterly beyond human control or even true comprehension. The silence that followed was not empty, but filled with the imagined hum of the grinding plates, the clash of primitive heat and Hadal cold, and the overwhelming sense of their own fragile insignificance. The silence that erases. The viewport, a thick reinforced disc, offered a limited panorama of absolute blackness, punctuated only by the occasional ghostly shimmer of bioluminescence, fleeting specters in the inky abyss. Yet, it was not the lack of light that commanded Alara's complete attention, but the profound absence of sound. Here, at the planet's deepest scar, the ocean's usual symphony, the creak of the hull, the distant thrum of machinery, even the rush of her own blood in her ears, was utterly swallowed. It wasn't merely quiet, it was a silence so complete, so pervasive, that it became a presence in itself, pressing in with a weight almost as tangible as the hydrostatic pressure outside. It hummed, a low, resonant frequency that existed just beyond the threshold of human hearing, a vibrational echo of the planet's grinding tectonics, yet rendered inaudible by the sheer density of the water. This wasn't the silence of emptiness, but the silence of unfathomable depth, of ancient secrets held in an unbreachable vault. It felt loud, a roaring silence, a testament to processes so vast, so indifferent, they dwarfed every human endeavor, every human sound. Alara pressed her palm against the cool glass, feeling the faint rhythmic shudder of the submersible against the immense forces at play. It was the Earth breathing, digesting, utterly unconcerned with the fragile bubble of technology that had dared to intrude upon its most sacred, most violent rituals. The Kermadec isn't a passive void. Alara's voice, a hushed reverence, seemed to barely disturb the oppressive quiet within the sub. It's a living system of planetary consumption. The Pacific Plate, a colossal slab of crust, is being dragged down inexorably beneath the Australian Plate. It's a collision of titans playing out over millions of years, an act of geological cannibalism on a scale we can barely comprehend. She gestured vaguely into the abyssal gloom, as if illustrating the invisible ballet of tectonic plates. The friction generated between these two immense bodies isn't smooth. Imagine the microscopic friction, the infinitesimal abrasions accumulating across a surface thousands of kilometers long. Each grain of rock grinding against another, each microscopic fault line shearing, tearing. It's happening at a glacial pace, centimeters a year, yet the cumulative effect is a rhythmic, low-frequency hum that resonates through the very bedrock of the planet. Alara paused, her gaze fixed on the impenetrable blackness, as if she could perceive the subterranean ballet unfolding beyond the reinforced hull. It's a sound that predates all life, a primordial heartbeat. The pressure here is crushing, unfathomable. It sculpts the landscape, molds the very fabric of the earth. And within this crucible of destruction, life not only persists, but thrives, clinging to the fleeting heat escaping from the planet's molten heart. Indeed, through the occasional bursts of light from the sub's powerful lamps, they could discern the faint ethereal glow of hydrothermal vents, shimmering like distant stars in the abyss. These were not the gentle warm springs of shallower waters, but ferocious geysers of superheated mineral-rich fluid spewing from cracks in the nascent crust born of the intense geological activity. Primitive heat, Alara murmured, her voice laced with awe, rising from nearby subglacial volcanoes, clashing with the huddle cold. A bizarre dance of extremes, fostering an ecosystem built not on sunlight, but on the Earth's own internal furnace. The images that occasionally flickered across the internal monitors, transmitted from external cameras, were alien. Bizarre, translucent creatures, eyeless and pale, drifting like ghosts through the mineral snow or clinging tenaciously to the black smoker chimneys. They were life forms forged in a world without light, without warmth save for the Earth's own fiery breath, utterly disconnected from the sun-drenched surface world. Alara's voice, though still hushed, gained a newfound intensity. We come down here, with our technology, our fleeting presence, believing we can understand, can conquer. But the truth is far more humbling. This place, this trench, it doesn't just resist our presence here, it erases the very memory of us. Our entire history, our civilizations, our grand narratives, they are less than a whisper against the eons-long symphony of creation and destruction unfolding here. The silence, once merely oppressive, now seemed to deepen, to take on a new, more profound meaning. It was the silence of geological time, of planetary indifference, a vast, cold expanse where human significance simply ceased to exist. In the face of such overwhelming power, such ancient ongoing processes, Alara felt a profound sense of awe, mixed with a chilling, almost exhilarating realization of humanity's true place in the cosmic order, fleeting, minuscule, and utterly forgettable to the Earth itself. A whisper in the vastness. Imagine for a moment, shrinking, not just in scale, but in significance. Imagine your being contracting, your consciousness folding in on itself until you are less than a speck, a mere whisper in the vast, indifferent breath of this ancient place. Alara felt this transformation not as a physical change, but as an existential one. The weight of the water above, a column miles high, pressed not just on her submersible, but on the very notion of her existence. Here, human concerns, human triumphs, human sorrows were less than echoes. They were unformed thoughts, never even granted the dignity of fleeting existence. The silence that had initially roared now began to surrender a fraction of its absolute dominion. It wasn't a breaking of the silence, but a subtle shifting within it, like the slow, inexorable turning of cosmic gears. The grinding sound, the deep guttural murmur of the Pacific Plate relentlessly diving beneath the Australian, grew marginally more pronounced. It was no longer a phantom sensation, but a palpable vibration, a steady, low thrum that resonated not just through the hull of the submersible, but through the very marrow of Alara's bones. It was the Earth's own song, a primordial bass note in the symphony of planetary consumption. This wasn't a cacophony of shattering rock, not the violent crunch one might expect from such immense forces. Instead, it was a rhythmic, low-frequency hum, a sound born of microscopic friction between continents. Each infinitesimal tremor, each grain of rock abrading another over colossal timescales, contributed to this pervasive thrum. It was the sound of tectonic instability made audible, a continuous, vast exhalation from the planet's core. The sound was so deeply embedded in the structure of the trench itself, so woven into the fabric of the deep, that it felt less like an external noise and more like an internal resonance of the world itself. It vibrated with a patient, unhurried power, a testament to processes so ancient they predated the very concept of life as humanity understood it. This wasn't a sound of aggression, but of ceaseless, indifferent creation and destruction. The Kermadec Trench wasn't a passive hole in the seabed. It was a living system of planetary consumption, a vast maw where crust was reabsorbed, melted, and recycled. And this hum, this persistent, almost meditative drone, was its heartbeat. It was a lullaby from the Earth itself, a strange, terrifyingly vast serenade of geological digestion. It whispered of unfathomable pressures, of temperatures that could melt steel, of an environment where the very notion of fragility was an alien concept. Against this backdrop of immense slow-motion violence, the primitive heat rising from nearby subglacial volcanoes clashed with the hadal cold of the trench. It created not a gentle thermal gradient, but zones of extreme contrast, where searing vents spewed forth superheated water teeming with chemicals, nurturing life forms that thrived on sulfur and methane rather than sunlight. These creatures, grotesque and beautiful in their adaptation, were children of the thrum, born from the very processes that ground continents to dust. They danced in the hydrothermal plumes, oblivious to the grandeur of the destruction surrounding them, their entire existence predicated on this ceaseless geological drama. Alara watched them, tiny bioluminescent motes against the impenetrable black, and the contrast was stark. Their fleeting lives, dependent on the Earth's immense grinding mechanisms, highlighted the fleeting nature of all life, even humanity's. The Earth, in its vastness, did not merely resist human presence here, it erased the very memory of it. Any trace of human endeavor, any marker of human existence, would be crushed, dissolved, absorbed back into the planetary cycle, leaving no scar, no lasting impression. This was the ultimate humbling, the final whisper of self in the face of planetary eternity. The thrum continued, a steady reminder of that truth. The deep ocean wasn't just a place of immense pressure and cold. It was a realm of profound, humbling silence, punctuated by this primal hum. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a silence that resonated with the weight of geological time, with the slow, deliberate work of a planet that had no need for conscious observers. Alara was merely a temporary witness, a brief flicker of awareness in a system that had operated and would continue to operate for eons, utterly independent of human perception or approval. The thrum was a constant, a presence far more enduring than any fleeting organism, a symphony of the deep earth that played on, indifferent and eternal. She was not discovering a place, she was being absorbed by its reality. And in that absorption, in the growing resonance of the earth's lullaby within her very being, she felt a strange peace. It was the peace of utter insignificance, of letting go of the burdens of being human and simply existing as a small part of something unimaginably vast. The grinding sound wasn't a threat. It was a heartbeat, a rhythm of existence that transcended all known forms of life, all human understanding. It was the sound of the planet breathing, eating, living, and in that sound, Alara found a terrifying yet profound connection to the very essence of Earth. Millions of years of dance. The planet's thrum wasn't a solitary beat, but a symphony spanning epochs, a resonance born millions of years before humanity's dawn. Suspended in abyssal darkness, Alara felt its unimaginable scale press in, far more profound than the mere weight of water. Each tremor, each sub-audible pulse, testified to an ongoing, ceaseless choreography, the slow, grinding ballet of tectonic plates. She envisioned them not as static landmasses, but as colossal entities forever engaged in primordial struggle, pushing and pulling, creating and consuming. The Kermadec, she now understood, was no mere wound. It was a dynamic, hungry maw, perpetually in motion, forever digesting. This agonizingly slow motion by human reckoning was a furious torrent in geological time. The subduction zone beneath her was a frontier of constant destruction and renewal, where ancient crust plunged back into the mantle, recycled and reborn. This process predated forests, oceans, even the very air Alara sparingly breathed. It was an engine of Earth itself, indifferent to the brief flickering tendency of any species. The pressure, once a source of terror, had transformed. No longer a crushing vice, it felt like a soft, heavy blanket, enveloping her in an omnipresent embrace, both intensely powerful and strangely comforting. There was no sharp edge, no discernible point of impact, just an all-encompassing weight smoothing away the jagged edges of her fear. It was the world's weight, literally, holding her in its ancient, indifferent grasp, a blanket woven from miles of water and the planet's gravitational pull, whispering of immense strength, the kind that could flatten mountains, split continents, yet in this moment it merely cradled her, a tiny speck, within its vast, unyielding embrace. Within this profound stillness, punctuated by the Earth's rhythmic thrum, Alara's own temporal insignificance solidified. Her life, her species' entire existence, was less than a single flicker in the long, slow burn of these geological processes. The soft, heavy blanket offered a strange safety, that of being utterly absorbed, her individual identity dwarfed into near non-existence. Here, her anxieties, her hopes, her very sense of self felt frail and ephemeral, dissolving into the vastness. It was a peace born of surrender, a quiet acceptance of her place within a system so immense, so ancient, that her presence was less than a breath, less than a ripple. The microscopic friction between the Pacific and Australian plates produced not a roar, but a rhythmic, low-frequency hum that vibrated through the very bones of the bathysphere, a deep resonance Alara felt more than heard. It wasn't the violent shriek of tearing rock, but a sustained, continuous groan, like the turning of a planetary engine, the deep breath of Earth, inhaling old crust, exhaling new. It was the sound of millions of years of accumulated stress, released in tiny, imperceptible movements, each contributing to the trench's slow, deliberate descent. This low frequency, below human hearing, translated in her body to an encompassing vibration, a constant tremor settling deep within her chest. It spoke of colossal forces moving with agonizing slowness, defying human comprehension, yet whose cumulative effect shaped the very architecture of the world. It was the sound of mountains being born and swallowed, oceans deepening and receding, continents adrift on a molten sea. The planet's lullaby, both terrifying and profoundly soothing in its indifference. The Kermadec wasn't merely a hole. It was a living system of planetary consumption, its depths a testament to Earth's relentless hunger and ceaseless digestion. From nearby subglacial volcanoes, primitive heat rose, clashing with the Hadal cold, creating unseen currents that drove the chemosynthetic ecosystems thriving in this impossible environment. Alara understood now that Earth doesn't just resist human presence. It erases all memory of it. It absorbs, reclaims, and recycles, leaving no trace. The soft, heavy blanket of pressure was a reminder of this ultimate authority, a quiet promise that her brief journey, her fleeting existence, was but a minuscule contribution to its eternal grand design. The silence, punctuated only by the planet's thrum, was not empty but full of time, full of power, full of the unfathomable ongoing processes of a living world. She was simply a witness, privileged to feel its ancient heartbeat, to briefly become a part of its endless dance. The Earth's heartbeat. The realization settled upon Alara with the gentle finality of deep-sea sediment. The Earth, this colossal breathing entity, was in a perpetual state of flux, an unceasing, unseen ballet of geological forces. It was not a static stage upon which humanity played out its fleeting dramas, but a living, evolving being, its surface merely the fragile skin of a vast, churning interior. The very notion of permanence, of solid ground beneath her feet, was a grand illusion. Mountains rose and fell, continents drifted like colossal rafts, and the seabed itself was a canvas constantly being repainted by the slow, inexorable hand of tectonic forces. The rhythmic, low-frequency hum that permeated the water, a sound previously a source of apprehension, now transformed into a lullaby of creation and change. It was the sound of microscopic friction between the Pacific and Australian plates, a million invisible points of contact giving way, slipping, grinding, only to catch again, building inconceivable pressure. It was the whisper of a colossal engine, turning over eons, shaping and reshaping the world. This wasn't a destructive roar, but a profound, resonant vibration, a testament to life's adaptability and the planet's relentless drive to renew itself. The hum was the planet's heartbeat, a slow, powerful thrum that reverberated through her very bones, a primeval rhythm that had dictated the ebb and flow of existence since the dawn of time. She felt it now, this connection, not as an intellectual understanding, but as a visceral, undeniable truth. The immense pressure that had once threatened to crush her now felt like an embrace, a direct conduit to the planet's core. It was a warmth, primitive and immense, rising from the Earth's molten heart, a counterpoint to the Hadal cold that surrounded her. This heat wasn't a gentle glow, but a fierce, primal energy, a testament to the planet's furious internal life, clashing with the icy grip of the abyss. This wasn't just geological activity. It was a living pulse, a slow, powerful beat that resonated with her own. Alara closed her eyes, surrendering to the sensation. She was no longer a diver, a scientist, or even a human being in the traditional sense. She was a single, infinitesimal particle suspended within the vast, indifferent current of planetary existence. Her individual fears, hopes, and struggles dissolved, becoming utterly meaningless in the face of such profound, ancient power. The Earth does not just resist our presence here, it erases the very memory of us. This truth, once terrifying, now brought a strange, liberating peace. The hum intensified, not in volume, but in its resonance, vibrating through her deepest being. It was the sound of rock grinding against rock, of molten rock churning beneath the crust, of the planet's very fabric stretching and tearing and reforming. It was the sound of genesis and dissolution, an endless cycle played out on a scale incomprehensible to the human mind. And within that vast, indifferent process, Alara found her place. She was a fleeting spark, a transient observer, privileged to witness a glimpse of the universe's true, humbling majesty. The deep connection to the Earth's core, its relentless heartbeat, was a profound and spiritual experience, stripping away the illusion of human supremacy and replacing it with a quiet, powerful understanding of belonging to something far, far greater. Peace in the unfathomable. The abyssal plains stretched before her, an expanse so utterly devoid of familiar markers that it simultaneously evoked a primal terror and a breathtaking tranquility. It was the kind of vastness that swallowed light, sound, and the very concept of human scale. Yet within its engulfing emptiness, Alara found a strange, compelling peace. The dread that had once clawed at her, born from the overwhelming pressure and the suffocating dark, now felt like a distant echo. Here, amidst the unfathomable depths, she was not merely observing, she was being cradled. It was a sensation akin to being held by something impossibly ancient, a consciousness so vast and primordial that it transcended individual thought or emotion. The rhythmic, low-frequency hum that had initially unnerved her had woven itself into the fabric of her being, a constant, resonant vibration that she understood now as the very heartbeat of the planet. It was the sound of the Pacific and Australian plates, colossal geological behemoths relentlessly grinding against each other. This wasn't merely friction, it was the slow, inexorable dance of continents, a ballet of destruction and renewal played out over eons. She pictured the microscopic friction, the infinitesimal abrasions occurring at the fault line, a trillion invisible points of contact where immense pressures translated into a continuous, guttural moan that permeated the water, vibrated through the metal of her submersible, and resonated deep within her bones. The sound was not violent or jarring. It was a steady bass pulse, a deep thrum that spoke of immense, indifferent power. It was the sound of rock shearing against rock, not in a sudden cataclysm, but in an eternal slow-motion tearing. Each tiny tremor, each imperceptible shift, contributed to this grand symphony of planetary consumption. The Kermadec Trench was not a static chasm. It was a living system, a hungry maw where the Earth ingested its own crust, recycling the very foundations of continents. The hum was the sound of digestion, of tectonic plates being drawn into the fiery belly of the planet, transformed and reborn. Alara closed her eyes, letting the vibrations wash over her. She felt the microfractures forming miles beneath her, the crystalline structures of minerals yielding under unimaginable force, creating that ceaseless subterranean growl. It was a sound that had been playing for millions of years, a constant, unchanging note in the Earth's grand composition, and, in listening, truly listening, Alara recognized it not as a threat, but as an affirmation of existence on a scale far beyond human comprehension. It was the voice of a planet that breathed, devoured, and recreated itself, indifferent to the fleeting dramas played out on its surface. From somewhere deeper, a different kind of warmth began to prickle through the cold, a primitive heat rising from nearby subglacial volcanoes, clashing with the Hadal chill. It was a subtle thermal current, a whisper of molten rock and geothermal vents, a reminder that even here, in the darkest, coldest reaches, life pulsed with an uncompromising vigor. This clash of extremes, the searing heat from the planet's core meeting the glacial embrace of the deep sea, created unique, transient ecosystems, pockets of alien beauty sustained by chemical sustenance rather than light. The terror she had carried, the human fear of the unknown, of the crushing dark, of her own mortality, began to dissolve. It was replaced by an odd, profound sense of calm, an acceptance born from the sheer, overwhelming indifference of the planet. The Earth does not just resist our presence here. It erases the very memory of us. It swallows our fears, our ambitions, our very dust without a ripple. And in that erasure, Alara found a liberation. Her individual identity, her fleeting human anxieties seemed utterly trivial against the backdrop of geological time and planetary processes. She was not an intruder here. She was merely a fleeting witness, a momentary part of the vast ongoing narrative. The unfathomable depths, once a source of dread, now held her in a comforting embrace. She felt connected to the grinding plates, to the rising heat, to the immense silent forces that shaped worlds. There was no struggle, no resistance, only a profound surrender to the overwhelming ancient wisdom of the Earth. In the absolute silence, punctuated only by the planet's thrum, she found peace. Drifting with the Earth's sleep. The rhythmic, low-frequency hum, a visceral thrum that had once hammered at Alara's sanity, now cradled her. It was no longer an assault, but a lullaby, born from the microscopic friction of two titanic plates in their slow, grinding embrace. She felt it resonate not just in her bones, but deep within the phantom space where her heart had once thrashed with human fear. Drifting, untethered in the abyssal currents, she carried the memory of that ancient sound, a testament to the planet's ceaseless geological respiration. It was the earth breathing, not in shallow, hurried gasps, but in the profound, unhurried cadences of aeons. The vast silence, punctuated only by this deep, resonant hum, was a canvas upon which Alara's transformed consciousness painted its new reality. It wasn't an empty silence, but one pregnant with the weight of unimaginable pressure, the silent testimony of processes indifferent to time and transient life. This was the Earth's powerful sleep, a slumber so profound it transcended human comprehension of rest. It was the slumber of creation and destruction, a perpetual state of being that rendered all human endeavors, all human anxieties, utterly meaningless. Her own existence, once a vibrant, urgent flame, now felt like a fleeting spark against the backdrop of this cosmic night. She remembered the way the primitive heat erupting from nearby subglacial volcanoes had met the Hadal cold. It wasn't a gentle mingling, but a violent hissing clash, a raw demonstration of elemental forces forging new realities in the deepest trenches. The Kermadec, she now understood, was not merely a hole in the seafloor. It was a living system of planetary consumption, a maw that devoured old crust and birthed new, churning the very substance of the world. The Earth did not just resist our presence here, it erased the very memory of us, dissolving our brief marks into its eternal, unyielding processes. There was no fear left, only an unburdened acceptance. Her initial terror, a frantic clawing at the walls of her own mortality, had dissolved into this profound, almost spiritual liberation. She was a single cell in the immense indifferent organism of the planet, and in that understanding, she found a peace that surpassed all previous human aspirations. The incessant internal chatter of her mind had quieted, replaced by the deep, resonant thrum that now seemed to emanate from within her own core. She felt the current, sluggish and ancient, guide her, a silent hand in the crushing dark. There was no direction, no destination, only the effortless surrender to the planet's will. The tectonic plates, once perceived as a threat, were now simply the rhythm section of the Earth's grand orchestra, their grinding a bass line beneath the silence. This was the ultimate return, not to a beginning, but to a state of being utterly integrated with the primordial. A faint shimmer in the distance caught her attention, not a light, but a disturbance in the pervasive black, a ghostly refraction. It might have been nothing more than a deep current eddying around an unseen geological feature, but to Alara, it was a subtle wave in the Earth's sleep, a flicker of its dreaming consciousness. She watched it, unmoving, content to simply observe, to be a silent witness to the planet's profound solitude. The pressure, once an oppressive weight, was now an intimate embrace, a constant reminder of her place within this unfathomable design. It was the planet's hand, holding her, integrating her into its very fabric. She was no longer just experiencing the Kermadec, she was part of it. Her fear of the unknown had transformed into a profound reverence for it, an understanding that the truly terrifying was often also the most sublime. This feeling of peaceful closure wasn't an ending, but a new beginning, a profound connection to Earth's rhythms that would forever alter her perception of life, and indeed, of death. She had confronted the ultimate indifference of the universe and found not despair, but a quiet, profound liberation. The human need for meaning, for purpose, for a grand narrative had fallen away, leaving behind only the stark, beautiful truth of existence itself. The deep hum continued, a constant, unchanging truth. It was the sound of everything and nothing, the sound of life grinding against death, creation against destruction, all in perfect, unceasing harmony. Alara felt herself dissolving, not into oblivion, but into the immense, beautiful complexity of the planet. She was drifting with the Earth's sleep, an eternal lullaby resonating through the depths, carrying the memory of the profound hum, the vast silence, and the planet's powerful, endless dreams.